If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 26, Prison Visit. The moment to witness a miracle has arrived. I shall bestow upon all of you the wings to fly. Bangkai Mukjesh Muramasa. With Aelin's call, majestic spiritual pressure erupted from within him. The dense spiritual pressure caused ripples within the enclosed barrier. So this is the power of Bangkai. Feeling his current formidable spiritual pressure, Aelin was filled with a feeling of I'm unrivaled in this world. However, Aelin did not lose himself in this power. Muramasa. Master. Responding to Aelin's call, Muramasa's figure appeared beside him. Let's begin. Yes, Master. Purple radiance spread from Muramasa's body, soon that violet spiritual pressure filled the entire enclosed barrier. Under the effect of this spiritual pressure, blue spiritual power emitted from the weapons inside Aelin's inner world. Next, these spiritual powers congregated into figures gripping Zanpakuta around the blades. After taking shape, they drew their original selves and knelt on one knee facing Aelin. Greetings, Master. Greetings, Master. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. At the peak of his unlimited blade works sword hill, Aelin flung his arms wide, laughing heartily. Behind him, the white-haired half-demon in a crimson rat fire coat, the aloof beauty with black hair and crimson eyes, the gentle woman resembling Yamato Nadeshiko, the arrogant spoiled little girl the size of a fist, the lazy and noble black cat. As expected, upon gaining Muramasa, his strength had a qualitative leap. Well, of course, all gains come with loss. At the minimum, the later Aelin would never want to pull Shinji Hiriko's Sakanade into his Bankai. When the weapons had yet to materialize, Sakanade's Bankai posed no threat to Aelin. But now, Aelin could only say, just to deal with a mere Shinji Hiriko, he didn't need his real Bankai. Vice Captain Aelin, you have a visitor. Sensing the call from the outside world, Aelin exited his inner world, opening his eyes in slight bewilderment. Oh? I actually have a visitor in prison? Captain Kuta or Shaolin Fon. Among the 2nd Division, due to his passable guidance in the art of assassination, Aelin had quite good relations. But in truth, only Captain Kuta and Shaolin Fon communicated more with Aelin. If someone was visiting him in prison, it could only be Captain Kuta Aokiji who cared about him the most or Shaolin Fon. However, the person who appeared before Aelin in the end left him in astonishment. Why is it you? The person who appeared outside Aelin's prison cell was a beautiful young girl with long black hair tied in a top knot, reaching her waist. Haruko Kukaki. I apologize for the trouble I've caused. The instant Haruko saw Aelin, she immediately knelt and prostrated, apologizing to Aelin. Last night, not long after the conflict began, Haruko was escorted by Kukaki house guards to a safe location. This morning when Jinrei Kukaki asked Haruko about Aelin, Haruko guessed that 2nd Division's vice captain whom her father misunderstood might be the one who had protected her at the tavern. Hence, Haruko directly confessed everything to Jinrei, about her rebellious thoughts against her father's actions, wanting to do things she normally wouldn't at that tavern. After entering the tavern, Haruko's courage abandoned her like a frightened pheasant, not daring to take another step. Fortunately, Aelin was present and no untoward customers came to harass Haruko in the tavern. Having heard the story from his daughter, Jinrei Kukaki finally understood his misjudgment regarding Aelin, personally informing Captain of the 9th Division, Kensei Maguruma. Otherwise, with just Haruko's status, it would have been very difficult entering the prison for visits. Aelin's mind spun, instantly comprehending all these matters. He directly asked Haruko, Captain Kukaki knows. Yes, I have explained everything clearly to father this morning. Aelin-sama, on the day of your trial, I will appear in court to testify for you, to tell everyone it was all because of me. Ah, no need. Hearing Haruko seemingly about to reveal her dark history, Aelin hurriedly interrupted her. After all, for a noble's unwed young lady to visit taverns alone wasn't good reputation. If Haruko hadn't come today and Central 46 wanted Aelin convicted, he wouldn't mind tearing off the Kukaki family's fig leaf. But since Haruko came and offered to testify for him during his trial, Aelin wouldn't drag others down. If I admired Miss Kukaki and happened to meet her alone on the streets, escorting Miss Kukaki home, what crime would that warrant? If those elders feel admiration itself is a crime, then practically all Shinigami in Seoul society who admire Captain Yamamoto, admire Captain Anohana should all be convicted, right? Pfft. Aelin's final analogy caused Haruko to laugh. She then reacted swiftly, covering her mouth with both hands to avoid losing composure before Aelin again. Naturally, Haruko understood Ailin didn't truly admire her but was helping gloss over her visiting the tavern, not wanting the matter to spread everywhere. So Miss Kokaki needn't worry, I believe Central 40SIXS elders will judge me fairly. As for the one who attacked me, openly using Bankai within Soul Society, violating Commander Yamamoto's edict. Hehe. While Ailin and Haruko chatted pleasantly, Kaga's rage burned wildly from the other side after hearing all that. Recently, with intention from one side and acquiescence from the other, Jinrei Kokaki and Kaga tacitly communicated regarding marriage arrangements. If nothing unexpected happened, Kaga would have met Haruko yesterday under Jinrei's arrangements before announcing his joining of the Kokaki house today, changing his name to Kaga Kokaki. But now, Kaga felt insulted. Haruko, who was supposed to be his fiancé, actually knew that despicable man? Moreover, she wanted to testify for that wretch to clear his name at the expense of Kokaki house's reputation. He had acted to preserve the Kokaki family's prestige yet was about to be punished for violating Soul Society's edict in the end. What did that make him then? A clown? Thinking thus, a flash of red glinted in Kaga's eyes. Miss Kokaki, your visiting time is up. Ailin and Haruko seemed to have returned to their time in the tavern, only difference was they drank in comfortable silence then while engaging in conversation now. They only realized time had passed swiftly without noticing when someone from the 9th Division came to remind them visiting hours were over. Chapter 27, Tilting. Ah! Is time up already? Haruko Kokaki covered her small mouth, her face full of disbelief. In the past, an hour always felt very long. How come today, it felt like she had just arrived? A hint of reluctance flashed in her eyes as Haruko Kokaki bowed to Ailin again. Ailin-kun, please take care of yourself. I will have my father pay attention to this incident. On the day of the trial, I will accompany my father to attend as well. If need be, I can testify in court for Ailin-kun. After saying that, Haruko Kokaki left the 9th Division's prison under the lead of a Shinigami from the 9th Division. Father? Eldest brother? Why are you two here? After leaving the prison, Haruko Kokaki was surprised to discover her father Jinrei Kokaki and eldest brother Shun Kokaki actually waiting outside for her. Cough cough. Shun wanted to say something but started coughing from his condition, covering his mouth. From between Shun's fingers, droplets of blood could be seen dripping down. Eldest brother, are you all right? I'm fine, just my old condition acting up. Waving his hand at Haruko Kokaki, Shun wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, smiling as he asked, Little sister, how was your chat with Vice Captain Ailin? Shun knew his own condition best. He didn't even know if he had as much time left as his father. Hence, Shun understood clearly the Kokaki family's next generation had to rely on his little sister's husband for support. Previously, Jinrei Kokaki had chosen Kaga Kokaki, 3rd seat of the 1st Division as his pick. But after yesterday's battle and learning of the connection between his little sister and 2nd Division Vice Captain Ailin, Shun had suggested to his father switching the one betrothed to his sister to Ailin instead. After last night's events, Jinrei Kokaki's impression of Kaga had lessened somewhat. Although he wouldn't veto Kaga outright, when another option appeared, Jinrei would scrutinize more carefully. After a night of investigation, Ailin's information was swiftly presented before father and son. Compared to Kaga, Ailin was younger and more versatile. Yesterday's battle clearly displayed Ailin's superior swordsmanship and shunpo, allowing him to suppress Kaga despite the vast difference in Ryutsu. Under equal Ryutsu, Jinrei even felt he might not necessarily defeat Ailin in swordsmanship or shunpo. This showed Ailin had a solid foundation as 2nd Division Vice Captain. As for Ailin's Zanpakuto, Jinrei hadn't deciphered its abilities at all. The first blade seemed wind type, capable of unleashing powerful wind strikes. But the later manifestation of hundreds of other blades left even Jinrei clueless. Of course, what shocked Jinrei most was Ailin's final move last night. If he hadn't seen wrongly, at that time, Ailin's Zanpakuto had transformed into a blazing fang, unleashing fused wind and fire attacks. If Jinrei recalled correctly, in the thousands of years since Zanpakuto's birth, never had any single blade wielded two elemental powers simultaneously. Ailin's Zanpakuto would likely be the first dual-element Zanpakuto in Soul Society's history. Perhaps in terms of functionality, Kaga's Zanpakuto surpassed Ailin's by far. But because of that power, the constraints Kaga would face would be far greater after joining the Kokaki family. The scheming and plots targeting someone with such a fearsome ability would surely intensify beyond what Kaga currently faced in the 1st Division. After all, Jinrei Kokaki was no Captain Commander Yamamoto with his peerless might. Meanwhile, Ailin's power was mighty yet not to the extent of causing dread. Also, Jinrei knew a Shinigami's true foes weren't fellow Shinigami but the Hollows from Hueco Mundo and the Stern Ritters from the Wandenreich. When facing these enemies, Ailin's usefulness exceeded Kaga's. Comparing both their Zanpakutos caused the weighing scales in Jinrei's heart to tilt slightly. Having Haruko visit Ailin today was a test for the father and son pair towards Ailin. Naturally, Haruko was oblivious to all that. But from his daughter's expression and their conversation, Jinrei nodded inwardly. Yet unnoticed by the Kokaki trio was the shadowy figure of Muramasa concealed nearby, his form exuding gloom as he observed all this silently. The Kuchikis go too far. In his cell, Kaga ground his teeth tightly. Beside him stood the respectful form of Muramasa. After incarceration, the 9th Division members had confiscated all the prisoners' Zanpakutos. Without their Zanpakutos, a Shinigami's strength would fall by 70 to 80%, facilitating the guard's management. Yet unknown to all was Kaga's Zanpakuto Muramasa differed from the norm. As long as Kaga called his name, Muramasa would instantly appear by his side. Moreover, with just Kaga providing Ryoryoku, Muramasa could independently materialize to gather intelligence from the outside world, extremely convenient for Kaga. Thus, never had Kaga expected Jinrei Kokaki to be abandoning him. Jinrei Kokaki, Ailin, each and every one of them acts sanctimoniously but are actually despicable, vile people. Daring to make a fool of me, everyone will have to pay the price. Tremendous riotsu erupted from Kaga, channeled into Muramasa. Yesterday, Muramasa had taken Ailin's fiery wind scar head-on, suffering grievous injuries. But under Kaga's mighty riotsu, his wounds slowly recovered. After some time, Kaga withdrew his riotsu. Muramasa. Master, please instruct me. With most injuries healed, Muramasa no longer seemed like he might drop dead from exhaustion at any moment. Bowing respectfully to Kaga, slight bewilderment rose in Muramasa's heart. What happened just now? For an instant, Muramasa felt he could barely make out his master's voice. Fortunately it was just a fleeting moment before Kaga's voice returned to normal. Dismissing it as his mishearing, Muramasa focused intently, awaiting his master's command. Go. Infiltrate the Kokaki family and assassinate that old geezer's son. Then. Chapter 28, Murder Case. At this point, Kaga paused for a moment. Originally, Kaga had planned to have Muramasa kill Shun Kokaki first, before killing Jinrei Kokaki as well. However, in that instant, Kaga suddenly recalled Muramasa's helpless performance when facing Ailin's attack last night, and he began to doubt greatly whether Muramasa could actually kill Jinrei Kokaki. Forget it, without me, you're just a useless fool. After killing Shun Kokaki, you should just go back to where you were and wait. I will call for you when I need you. By then, we will join forces to kill Jinrei Kokaki, as well as that despicable vice-captain. Muramasa gazed at Kaga moving lips, and a powerful sense of fear suddenly arose within him. I can't hear it. I can't hear it. He knew his master was speaking, but he couldn't hear what his master was saying at all. Useless Kaga-sama. After Muramasa's figure disappeared from the prison cell, Kaga turned his gaze towards the prison cell housing the culprit who had turned him into a clown and dashed all of his bright future prospects into darkness. Just you wait. After I deal with that old geezer, it will be time for your death. Kaga restrained the killing intent in his eyes and closed them, waiting for his chance. By violating Captain Commander Yamamoto's edict and releasing Bankai within Soul Society, Kaga knew what likely awaited him was banishment to the expeditionary force in Hueco Mundo. After all, although he was the third seat of the 1st Division directly under Captain Commander Yamamoto, that elder cared more about upholding Soul Society's rules than saving him. If he had become the Kokaki family's son-in-law with their maneuvering, at most he would have been detained for a few days before transferring to the 6th Division to become their new vice-captain. In a few years, or even decades, he might have even succeeded as the 6th Division's captain. But all of that completely shattered after Ailin's appearance. The Kokaki family now had another option. What infuriated Kaga even more was that this option had come about by his own hand. If he hadn't made a move last night and let that man get away, who would have known a mere vice-captain actually had strength to briefly match his own? Even if that man had risen to prominence some time later, he would likely have already become 6th Division's captain by then. What a pity. It was all that man's fault. Ah! In the early morning while most were still asleep, the shriek from the maid attending to Shun Kokaki, eldest son of the Kokaki family, caused the atmosphere in the entire Seoul society to tense up significantly. How could this be? Big brother, he. Outside Shun Kokaki's bedroom, Jinrei Kokaki reached out to stop his youngest daughter from seeing her eldest brother's miserable state. Over a dozen members of the Onmitsukid were investigating all over the Kokaki residence. Inside the bedroom was 2nd Division Captain Yuryuaki Shion, 3rd Seat Kisuk Urahara, and Shaolin Fon. Yuryuaki Shion folded her arms, her phoenix eyes sweeping across the entire bedroom, seemingly having discovered something. What do you think, Urahara? Kisuk Urahara's expression was solemn as he nodded, affirming Yuryuaki Shion's speculation. Meanwhile, Shaolin Fon beside them couldn't comprehend what the pair were communicating. She could only gaze at her captain admiringly one moment, before staring at Kisuk Urahara as if looking at trash the next. Let's go. Yuryuaki Shion smiled and ruffled Shaolin Fon's hair. Shaolin Fon and Urahara's interaction was a rare delight in her daily life. After leaving the bedroom, Yuryuaki made a gesture at the Onmitsukid members before walking towards Jinrei Kokaki who was waiting outside. Although it was his own son who had died, Jinrei had still assigned the investigation of his death to the 2nd Division. After all, the 2nd Division were the experts compared to the 6th Division for such matters. Have you found any clues? Yuryuaki. Old man, Shun died by his own Zanpakutetsu power. The only one capable of accomplishing this is 3rd Seat of 1st Division, Keiga. Before Yuryuaki Shion could finish, Jinrei Kokaki directly spoke that name. This answer also caused him tremendous heartache. As Haruko Kokaki's father, even when considering finding a pillar of support for the Kokaki family and 6th Division, Jinrei would still consider the other party's moral character and personality. After all, he didn't want his daughter meeting someone unworthy either. Over these years, Keiga was the youth Jinrei looked upon most favorably. They were even a step away from him bringing Keiga to meet his daughter. If she didn't object, Keiga would have become Keiga Kokaki. Even when his son later suggested including 2nd Division's Vice Captain Alan as another candidate, due to their years of rapport, Jinrei still naturally favored Keiga more at heart. Yet he could never have imagined that in just a single day, his own son would actually die by his Zanpakutetsu power. How is this possible? Upon hearing their conversation, Haruko's mind buzzed blankly. Due to eldest brother's poor health all this time, everyone was aware he might not last much longer. She had also long prepared herself to lose eldest brother at any time. But she never imagined her eldest brother would not have died from illness, but was instead assassinated. The culprit was that man called Keiga. Ginger, you lead the division members to care for Haruko. Yuryuaki Captain and I are heading to the 9th Division. Yes, Captain Kokaki. Beside Jinrei was a male Shinigami with short, cropped hair. He promptly arranged for additional defenses all around the Kokaki residence. Ginger Shirogane, 3rd Seat of 6th Division, was also the strongest in 6th Division after Captain Jinrei Kokaki. If not for Shun Kokaki being Jinrei's son, the position of 6th Division Vice Captain would definitely have belonged to Ginger. Similarly, as 3rd Seat, Ginger had also defeated many members of 6th Division who wanted to challenge Vice Captain Shun. Compared to Shun Kokaki, Ginger was more popular within 6th Division. As Jinrei and the other three left into the distance, one Shinigami suddenly said to Ginger, Vice Captain Kokaki has passed, so 3rd Seat Shirogane will be our next Vice Captain now, right? Congratulations! Humph! After glancing at that congratulatory Shinigami, Ginger shook his head, don't spout nonsense. If Captain Kokaki heard that, there would be hell to pay for you later. Chapter 29, Change of Mindset. When Ginger said that, the Shinigami's face instantly turned pale. He didn't dare say anything more and hurried to his patrol position. Captain Kokaki's son had just died. Yet he was eagerly saying Ginger would be promoted to vice captain. He was practically asking to die sooner. After arranging the division members, Ginger personally stood guard beside Haruko Kokaki. Regarding the position of vice captain, if Ginger said he didn't have some thoughts about it, that would be a lie. However, after so many years in the 6th Division, Ginger believed he had seen through the 6th Division, or rather the Kokaki family. The 6th Division was a noble division. The Kokaki family was one of the 4 great nobles in Seoul society. He led the noble division, fully deserving this in name and reality. Thus, the Kokaki family viewed the 6th Division as the family's private property, not allowing outsiders to interfere. His strength was much greater than Shun Kukaki's, yet in the 6th division he could only be 3rd seat. Although Shun Kukaki had died now, and the position of vice-captain seemed just a step away. But Ginger was very clear that his own chances of becoming the 6th division's vice-captain were negligible. Glancing at the young lady of the Kukaki family immersed in grief, Ginger shook his head. In the future, the only one who could become 6th division's vice-captain would be this young lady's husband. His only chance of becoming vice-captain was after Captain Kukaki retired and the young lady's husband successfully took over. And recalling the little master Shun Kukaki left behind, Byakuya Kukaki, perhaps even his own position of vice-captain wouldn't last long. Being a Shinigami was so boring. Especially in a division where he could clearly see the outcome from the start. He might as well start a side business first. When the time was right, he would retire from the 6th division. What should he do? He heard spectacles were very popular in the human world lately. Bang! The prison door opened and Alan opened his eyes. He sensed 5 familiar Ryotsus approaching. Captain Yoryuaki Shion, Kisuke Urahara, Shaolin Fon, Jinrei Kukaki, Love Akawa. Could my trial be starting today? Sensing the 5 people approaching, Alan was somewhat puzzled. Since when did Central 46 work so efficiently? However, to Alan's surprise, after the 5 people nodded slightly at him, they walked straight to another prison cell where Keiga Kukaki was imprisoned. Keiga. After everyone stopped, Jinrei Kukaki took a step forward, first addressing Keiga who had his back facing them. Oh? Rare guests indeed. Captain Kukaki. I didn't expect the first prison visit to be Captain Kukaki himself. What an honor. Keiga didn't even bother turning around. Even Love Akawa who wasn't familiar with him couldn't help frowning slightly at Keiga's sarcastic words. Facing Keiga's dissatisfaction, Jinrei Kukaki didn't try to justify himself. After all, it was because he wanted to catch Alan who was following his daughter that Keiga used Bankai, violating Commander Yamamoto's edict. Firstly, he didn't visit Keiga immediately, instead having his own daughter visit Alan. Secondly, he didn't utilize his connections to reduce Keiga's crimes or have Keiga transferred to the 6th division. In summary, Keiga was sticking up for Jinrei, but in the end Keiga alone had to bear all consequences. Jinrei admitted his mistakes on this. However, he wasn't here to apologize now. Keiga, you should be very clear about my treatment of you over the years. What's not clear about it? Wasn't it having me marry into the Kukaki family to serve the Kuchikis? Since they were done putting up pretenses, Keiga didn't bother giving Jinrei any face either. But it seems the Kukaki family had found a better substitute, so I got abandoned, right? No. I hadn't given up on you before. Hee. Keiga laughed coldly. The conversation between Jinrei and Keiga let everyone present learn quite a bit of gossip. Even Captain Yoryuaki Shion didn't know there were so many additional factors during the fight 2 nights ago between Alan and Keiga. However, considering Jinrei's age and Shun Kukaki's condition, everyone understood. Indeed, after that person appeared, I did have some doubts. But Keiga, do you think I would reject you over someone I just met yesterday? Keiga's smile froze. Indeed, over the years Jinrei had treated Keiga as his junior. And Keiga had dutifully acted as a junior, their relationship not much different from in-laws. From Keiga's understanding of Jinrei, he wouldn't reject him over someone who just appeared either. A flash of regret appeared in Keiga's heart but was swiftly shredded apart. Who was he? He was Keiga, a genius with ability to overturn Soul Society. What right did Jinrei have to speak to him so condescendingly? Was it the might of a 6th division captain? Or the status of the 4 great nobles? Unknowingly, Keiga's psyche had undergone tremendous change. Why could these people stand so high up and arbitrarily decide his fate? While he had to obey their decisions. Even for rejection, he should be the one rejecting the Kuchikis. Thus, facing Jinrei's current attitude, Keiga finally turned around. Oh? Shun Kukaki died? How delightful! But Captain Kukaki, your son died and you're pinning the blame directly on me. That's hardly appropriate, right? Don't bother arguing, Keiga. Jinrei didn't believe Keiga's sophistry at all. Shun died under his own Zanpakutetsu power. In all of Soul Society, only you are capable of this, Keiga. Answer me. Why did you kill Shun, Keiga? Facing Jinrei's aggressive questioning, Keiga laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Captain Kukaki, accusations require evidence. When I was sent to the 9th Division's prison yesterday, my Zanpakuto was personally confiscated by the 9th Division captain. Moreover, the Shinigami guards of the 9th Division prison can testify that after I entered prison until now, I've been inside the entire time. Captain Kukaki, you tell me, without my Zanpakuto in hand, how could I have killed Shun Kukaki from inside the 9th Division prison? Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Chapter 30, Invitation. Kaga's crazy laughter echoed throughout the 9th Division's prison. Everyone present fell silent. After learning that Shun Kukaki had died from the power of his own Zanpakuto, everyone began to suspect Kaga. However, as Kaga said, his Zanpakuto had been personally confiscated by Captain Kensei Maguruma of the 9th Division and stored in the warehouse. His entire person had been in the 9th Division's prison the whole time without ever leaving. They had already gone to check the warehouse before coming to question Kaga. His Zanpakuto was still in its original location. Just as Kaga said, if they wanted to accuse him of killing Shun Kukaki, they needed to provide evidence proving that Kaga was able to kill the 6th Division's Vice-Captain Shun Kukaki from inside the 9th Division's prison without using his Zanpakuto. Or, prove that the guards of the 9th Division were negligent in their duties, allowing Kaga to secretly leave the prison without their knowledge. Yoriuki had obviously thought of the latter point first. So she walked to Ailen's prison cell. Yo, Vice-Captain Ailen. You're quite famous recently. Many Shinigami outside are saying you're the strongest under the captains. Enough, Captain. If possible, I'd rather not have this notoriety. Oh? Seeing you like this, I thought you quite enjoyed it here. Ailen shook his head. It's not enjoyment, just habituation. Yoriuki Shine nodded slightly. Indeed, from what Yoriuki knew, in the past 30-odd years, when not on missions her vice-captain was either training in his quarters or slacking off after learning some tricks from Shaolin Fon recently before occasionally leaving the barracks. The 9th Division's prison cell was about the same size as Ailen's quarters in the 2nd Division. So Ailen saying he was used to it made sense. However, Captain Yoriuki, how much longer must I stay here? Also, what charges have those Central 46 nobles pinned on me? Ha, if nothing unexpected happens, you can leave tomorrow. As for the charges, with Miss Kukaki and Captain Kukaki personally testifying for you and providing evidence to Central 46 that you were protecting Miss Kukaki that night, what charges could they pin on you? At most you'll just pay some fees to repair the damaged streets. Then I really must thank Miss Kukaki and Captain Jinrei. After exchanging some information, Yoriuki directly asked, Ailen, you should know what I want to ask. Hearing Yoriuki and Ailen's conversation, the others also shifted their attention over. Even Kaga was no exception. After all, if Ailen truly wanted him dead, Ailen could simply fabricate lies. Under everyone's gaze, Ailen nodded. But I'm afraid the outcome may disappoint everyone. Last night I did sense violent fluctuations in third seat Kaga's Ryutsu, but his entire person truly never left the prison. After leaving the prison, Yoriuki Shine looked to Kisuke Urahara after Shaolin Fon had left. Kisuke, what do you make of this matter? Yoriuki had absolute confidence in Kisuke Urahara. In her eyes, Kisuke was the smartest person in the world. As long as he wanted, there was nothing he couldn't accomplish. Naturally this incident with the Kukaki family's eldest son wouldn't stump Kisuke either. Without a doubt, regardless of how Shun Kukaki died or third seat Kaga's tone, we know Shun Kukaki was killed by him. However, as Kaga said, he was in the 9th Division's prison the entire time without leaving. His Zanpakuto was also in the 9th Division's warehouse. It would be very difficult for us to find evidence of him committing the murder. That's right. The ability to control other people's Zanpakutos is the power of third seat Kaga's Zanpakuto. But Kaga's Zanpakuto has been in the 9th Division's warehouse this entire time. Without his Zanpakuto, there's no way for him to activate his ability to control other people's Zanpakutos, right? Oh right, Yoriuki. You go on ahead first. I have an idea I need to test out. Oh. Yoriuki stopped in her tracks, a smile on her face. As expected of Kisuke, he had never let her down before. All right, Shaolin Fon and I will head back first to await your good news then. After seeing Yoriuki Shine and Shaolin Fon's figures disappear into the distance, Kisuke Urahara took out a black stealth uniform from somewhere, draping it over himself. After that, Kisuke Urahara's Ryutsu, scent, and figure instantly vanished from the spot. Then under the stealth uniform's concealment abilities, Kisok Urahara noiselessly infiltrated the 9th Division's warehouse, focusing his gaze on third seat Kaga's Zanpakuto. There were 2 more days until Kaga's trial. Based on Kisok Urahara's past understanding of Kaga, someone so arrogant definitely wouldn't just obediently let Central 40SIXS people try him. The air of freedom. Indeed, Uryuaki Shine hadn't lied to Alan. On the second day, the 9th Division received the verdict from Central 46. Because the Kukaki family head and victim Haruko Kukaki had submitted sufficient evidence to prove Alan's innocence, Alan didn't even need to go through Central 40SIXS trial and was directly declared innocent. As for Kaga, because he had violated Captain Commander Yamamoto's edict, there was no one in the 1st Division who dared plead leniency for him. And Kaga's Zanpakuto abilities, along with his actions directly controlling other captains' Zanpakutos in front of the Kukaki residence, caused Central 40SIXS nobles to feel Kaga was uncontrollable. Seoul Society's system could be said to have decayed completely. But for this decayed system to have lasted several thousand years showed these ruling nobles of Seoul Society weren't fools either. While their personal strength might be lacking, they had many methods of exiling powerful Shinigami beyond their control from Seoul Society. After retrieving his Zanpakuto, Alan walked out of the 9th Division's prison gates under escort from the 9th Division members. Alan-kun, I've caused you much trouble. Outside the gates, Haruko Kukaki dressed in white bowed apologetically to Alan, her eyes red. Sigh. Seeing Haruko Kukaki's attire, Alan sighed. He knew Shun Kukaki would die but didn't expect Kaga to act so decisively, immediately making his move after being imprisoned. To a certain degree, Shun Kukaki's death held some responsibility that Alan couldn't shirk. My condolences, Miss Kukaki. Alan's consolations caused Haruko Kukaki's eyes to redden further. Alan-kun, father has invited you to jointly attend eldest brother's funeral. Chapter 31, Agreement. Invite me to attend Shun Kukaki's funeral service. Alan was somewhat surprised. Soul Society was originally the world where human souls resided after death, belonging to the afterlife. The people of Soul Society, rather than people, were all souls. Only because they had Rishi, a transcendent energy that could absorb more Rishi, and use that Rishi in various ways, were they called Shinigami. Generally after the souls of Rukonga died, their souls would disperse into Rishi. Because Shinigami had Ryutsu, absorbing Rishi, their souls were much stronger compared to ordinary souls. Therefore, when Shinigami died, their bodies could still be preserved as corpses for a period before dispersing completely into Rishi. Moreover, after Ryutsu reached a certain level, even after death, the corpse wouldn't disperse into Rishi for hundreds of years. In Soul Society, people commonly believed that after souls dispersed into Rishi, they would become new, pure souls reborn into the human world. If the corpse after death never dispersed into Rishi, it meant that person could never reincarnate. Thus, no one knew since when, but within Siriti came an idea for a funeral ceremony to allow sacrificed Shinigami to reincarnate faster. The so-called funeral ceremony was to cremate the corpses of sacrificed Shinigami to quicken dispersion into Rishi. To Shinigami, the faster the body dispersed after death, the faster the rebirth into the human world. Although Jinrei Kukaki was heartbroken over his son's death, he didn't want to delay his child's reincarnation. Hence he decided that tomorrow, the 3rd day after Shun Kukaki's death, to hold a funeral ceremony for Shun. Naturally at that time, the Kukaki family would invite some relatives and friends to see Shun Kukaki off. Alan just never expected that he would also receive an invitation. Since Captain Kukaki invited me, it would be too ungracious for me to decline. By then, I will attend together with Captain Uryuaki. Although some unpleasantness had happened between Alan and Jinrei Kukaki over Haruko Kukaki, now that Jinrei was extending goodwill, Alan wouldn't act aloof either. No, that's not. Hearing Alan's reply, Haruko Kukaki was startled, soon shaking her head, somewhat flustered. After a long while, Haruko Kukaki finally mustered her courage, face flushed red as she said to Alan, Alan-kun, what my father said was to have you accompany me as a friend to receive the guests who've come to mourn. In truth, what Jinrei Kukaki said was to have Haruko invite Alan under the identity of her fiancé to receive guests. Now, Jinrei Kukaki had confirmed Kaga was the murderer who killed his son Shun. No matter how much he valued Kaga before, wanting Kaga to marry into the family, it had all become bubbles now. With Shun Kukaki's death now, signs of the Kukaki family's decline were showing. If the Kuchikis didn't want to follow the Shine clan's footsteps, they had to swiftly give outsiders a sign that the Kokaki family was still powerful. Otherwise, those nobles would be like bloodthirsty sharks, eyeing the Kokaki family greedily. Once Jinrei Kokaki passed away, one could imagine the terrifying outcome awaiting the Kokaki family. The battle between Aelin and Keiga a few nights ago had also significantly raised Aelin's fame. If Aelin became the Kokaki family's son-in-law, he could deter most ill-intentioned people. And once Aelin completed his Bankai training, the Kokaki family would have no worries for the next few hundred years. Only, Haruko Kokaki was too shy, not daring to directly tell Aelin to become her fiancé. Also, afraid of rejection, she could only say Aelin would accompany her as a friend. Accompany you to receive guests as a friend. Although Haruko hadn't stated it clearly, Aelin wasn't an idiot. What kind of person could accompany Haruko to receive guests? Aelin raised a brow, looking Haruko up and down. He had to admit, Haruko had inherited excellent genes from the Kokaki family. Although still somewhat immature, one could foresee ample room for future growth. Should he agree? Aelin stroked his chin. As leader of the four great nobles, for Shun Kokaki the eldest son's funeral service, practically all of Siraidi's top brass would come to mourn. This naturally included Captain Commander Yamamoto and the other 12 captains. If he could meet these prominent figures, his unlimited blade works would surely gain many more powerful weapons. This included Captain Commander Yamamoto's Zanpakuto, the oldest and strongest fire-type Zanpakuto in Soul Society, Rijinjaka. As well as the strongest lightning-type Zanpakuto, Gonrimaru. If he missed this chance, wanting to meet Captain Commander Yamamoto again would probably take until Sukaizen's holification experiments over 100 years later that caused Soul Society to lose 6 captains. Agree. Only an idiot wouldn't. Thinking so, Aelin finally nodded under Haruko's anxious gaze, smiling. Aren't we already friends? If accompanying you to receive guests can help, I'm very willing to oblige. Okay, see you tomorrow morning then, Aelin-kun. Having obtained Aelin's consent, Haruko patted her chest in relief, letting out a breath. She then smiled and waved at Aelin before turning to head back to the Kokaki residence in small quick steps. She was going to notify her father that Aelin had agreed to accompany her in receiving guests. Hehe. Only after Haruko Kokaki's figure disappeared around the corner did Aelin withdraw his gaze. Perhaps having such a cute wife isn't a bad thing. But, thinking of the crisis awaiting Siraidii later, Aelin eventually shook his head and sighed. If he couldn't even ensure his own survival in the 1000-year blood war, the more people he cared about, the more anguish when that time arrived. Considering the enemies he might face in the future, Sukaizen fused with the Hgyaku, Waiwak, Quincy Emperor and founder of the Wandenreich and his stern Ritters, and the 8th generation Kenpeki, Xiaoza's hero. Aelin even treated Captain Commander Yamamoto and the few from Squad Zero as hypothetical enemies. In comparison, no one knew what might happen tomorrow. Only through self-strengthening could he ensure protecting everything he cherished. Casting these thoughts aside, Aelin headed towards 2nd Division. All extra considerations now were redundant. Seizing every opportunity to grow stronger was the correct approach. Just think. If he already had his present strength that night, disregarding Jinrei noticing him, even if Jinrei and Keiga came at him together, so what? His ability dictated he could only silently work hard, then shock everyone later. The day he gained invincible power, even going against the whole world would be fine. Chapter 32, Rebellion of Keiga. In the Kokaki residence, Shun Kokaki's corpse was surrounded by white flower petals as one Shinigami after another arrived at the memorial hall to bow and pay their respects. Beside the memorial hall, Haruko Kokaki knelt in white mourning attire, returning the bows to each Shinigami who had come to mourn her elder brother. Aelin was doing the same. However, Aelin's kneeling position was slightly behind Haruko Kokaki. Some of the people who came to mourn Shun Kokaki looked at Aelin rather strangely. However, Aelin paid them no mind. Although Aelin's expression was blank, his heart had already bloomed with joy. He struck it rich. Many prominent figures that Aelin had never interacted with before had come to mourn Shun Kokaki this time. What pleasantly surprised Aelin even more was that 5th Division Vice Captain Sukaizen who came with Shinji Hirako to mourn Shun Kokaki was actually not a body double. Captain Commander Yamamoto and Lieutenant Jur Sasakaibe had also attended Shun Kokaki's funeral together. The current 11th Division Captain, Xia Kenpeki, had also made an appearance. The Kenpeki 200 years ago was still Xia Kenpeki. Zugayo no Kotori, Rijinjaka, Suzumibaki. Even 4th Division Captain Retsuo Nohana's Minajiki and 12th Division Captain Kiryo Hikifun were present. Apart from these top-tier Zanpakuts, Ailin also copied several thousand other Zanpakuts in passing. It would probably take a very long time to fully materialize these Zanpakuts. Naturally, after materializing these Zanpakuts, the increase in Ailin's strength went without saying. Of course, most importantly, having forged these few thousand Zanpakuts, what kind of swords were needed for some abilities would be recorded in Ailin's unlimited blade works. With so many formulas at his disposal now, the variety and strength of weapons Ailin could manufacture would greatly enhance. One could say this trip to help the Kuchikis was more rewarding than Ailin's centuries of arduous cultivation. At noon, after everyone who intended to come pay their final respects to Shun Kukiki had done so, the Kukiki servants carried Shun Kukiki's coffin onto a pyre built in the courtyard that Jinrei Kukiki personally lit ablaze with a torch. In the raging flames, particles of Reishi floated out from Shun Kukiki's body, dispersing in Soul Society under everyone's blessings. While the Kukiki family was holding a funeral ceremony for their eldest son on one side, on the other side in 9th Division, Keiga was being escorted by 9th Division members to the Central 46 compound to receive judgment. Clank, clang, clank. As the huge doors opened, the shackled Keiga was escorted inside by 2 9th Division Shinigami's. Raising his head, he observed the institution representing Soul Society's highest authority. The Central 46 compound's judgment chamber was a sealed space akin to the size of a basketball court. Here, the lowest, empty area was where the defendant would stand to receive judgment. Surrounding the square on all sides in ascending stair-like rows were the judging benches. The higher the status, the higher the positions of the benches. At the very top were 5 approximately 10-meter-long, arc-shaped extravagant judgment benches arranged in a semicircle that belonged to Soul Society's 5 great noble families, symbolizing their supreme power. However, currently among those 5 benches, only 3 were occupied. The benches representing the Shion and Shiba families were vacant. Beneath them were Soul Society's 12 high-ranking noble families separated into 2 levels with 6 benches on each level. Clearly, even among the upper nobility there was still stratification. On the lowest 3 rows with 10 benches each sat representatives of Soul Society's lower nobility. This constituted the Central 46 formed by Soul Society's 46 noble clans. Defendant Keiga, with conclusive evidence that you violated Soul Society's ban and forcefully released your Zanpakut without permission, we, the Central 46, are gathered to try you. The defendant Keiga is lawless with no moral integrity, violating Soul Society's most stringent ban. His Zanpakut shall be confiscated and the defendant himself exiled from Soul Society and consigned to the expeditionary force in Hueco Mundo, never to return to Soul Society in his lifetime. Enforce immediately. Perched high up, these noble clan members of Central 46 delivered their verdict on Keiga in cold and heartless speech, instantly deciding the latter half of this Shinigami's life in a flash despite his formidable power. Without his Zanpakut, Keiga posed virtually no threat to Soul Society. And with the Ryutsuo of a captain class, Keiga could kill more hollows in the expeditionary force. As for encountering stronger hollows, without a Zanpakut how Keiga would deal with them wasn't part of their consideration. He was merely an ordinary Shinigami. If not for that fearsome Zanpakut of his, would someone like him even be worth their second glance? Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Hearing these nobles' verdict on him, Keiga's reaction wasn't what the nobles had expected. He's laughing loudly. Perhaps he cannot accept our judgment and has gone mad from the inability to do so. Gone mad? What a pity. No matter. With the Shin Academy's graduation nearing, send him and those who fail to enter the 13 court guard squads to the expeditionary force then. Delaying a few days won't make much difference. Seeing Keiga's reaction, the nobles didn't take it to heart. Their goal today had already been accomplished. You people truly understand nothing about true power. Just as the nobles wanted the 9th Division members to imprison Keiga, an icy voice echoed throughout the Central 46 judgment chamber. Nothing but a group of powerless ants. What exactly gave you the delusion that you could judge a dragon? Boom! An overwhelming Ryutsuo erupted from Keiga's body. Like surging tidal waves, his Ryutsuo submerged all those clan elders of Central 46 within. Insolence. Arrogance. Those elders were all the patriarchs of their respective clans. Perhaps they didn't have much personal strength but they were extremely versed in wielding authority. Hence, apart from those 13 captains, they looked down upon all other Shinigamis. Unfortunately, the one before them now was Kega, who only respected strength. No matter how they rebuked him, their Ryutsu couldn't lie. Under Kega's massive Ryutsu, those elders couldn't help clutching their own throats, gasping for air. Panic crept into some of their eyes. Without bothering about Central 40SIX's ugly state, Kega summoned his Zanpakuto when the two Shinagamis restraining him attacked. Muramasa! He hollered hotly. Only to Kega's surprise, Muramasa did not appear. Chapter 33, Won't waste your time too much. Muramasa! Kega called again, but Muramasa still did not appear. At this time, the two Shinagamis were almost upon Kega. Kega's face darkened. In the past, such small fries wouldn't even need him to act. Muramasa would automatically control their Zanpakutos to kill themselves. But now, after calling out to Muramasa twice with no response, Kega cursed Muramasa in his heart while shouting loudly with his mouth. Head number 32, Kaizen. A blazing crimson light coalesced between Kega's hands, finally gathering into a massive fireball that shot towards the two Shinagamis. Boom! Ah! The violent explosion and the Shinagamis' dying screams filled the Central 46 nobles with tremendous fear. This man actually dared to attack here. When Kega turned his gaze onto them, they hid under the tables one by one, avoiding Kega's sight while crawling hastily towards the exit on their knees. If they were any slower, who knew if this madman would kill them too? Kega-sama! Just as Kega was about to slaughter these nobles, the judgment hall's gates were sliced open. Muramasa's slightly exhausted figure appeared before Kega. However, instead of delight at seeing Muramasa again, Kega's face sank as he let out a cold snort. Humph! Muramasa, were you thinking of betraying me too? Facing my calls yet not responding at all. Kega-sama called for me. Muramasa's pupils constricted. The reason he came here was because for the past 2 days, a strange Shinigami had been watching him. And since Muramasa hadn't heard Kega's calls for 2 days, he materialized before that Shinigami. That Shinigami was quite strong. Muramasa had let the latter's Zanpakuto materialize before managing to escape after using Bankai himself. It was also by probing that Shinigami's memories with his Bankai ability that Muramasa learned Kega would be put on trial today, hence rushing over hurriedly. He didn't hear Kega-sama's calls at all. Could it be, he couldn't hear Kega-sama's voice again? My apologies, Kega-sama. I encountered a very troublesome opponent, so it took some time. But now clearly wasn't the time to discuss this with Kega-sama. Kega-sama, on my way here I sensed many people hurrying in this direction. Humph, so fast. Kega glanced contemptuously at the disgraced Central 46 nobles. But before me, the number of Shinagamis means nothing. Taking back Muramasa's real body from Muramasa's hands, Kega strode out of Central 40SIX's Judgment Hall. Outside, over 59th Division members led by Kensei Maguruma had the entrance surrounded. Kega, surrender your weapons immediately. I've no wish to waste too much time on you. Kensei placed his hand on his Zanpakuto's hilt, deciding to directly use Bankai the moment Kega refused to comply, striving to subdue the latter as swiftly as possible. Indeed, I won't waste your time either. Kega raised his head, eyeing the Shinagamis surrounding him as the corners of his lips curved up slightly. These Shinagamis would become the perfect tools for him to rule over Soul Society. Bankai. Mukjaish Muramasa. Clang. Clang. The Kukaki residence had just concluded Shun Kukaki's funeral when the emergency alarm for Siraidai suddenly rang out in everyone's ears. In the next moment, a flare of Ryutsu rapidly unfurled from the bodies of all present Shinagamis. This is head number 57, Beak Shunpo. Thanks to Kisuke Urahara's experiences, Ailin quickly discerned the nature of this Ryutsu. This kid's function was to sense and pursue Ryutsu's signatures. Generally used while pursuing fugitives. It could also be used together with head number 77. Based on Siraidai's emergency alarm now and the markers left in everyone's Ryutsu, one could guess the next kid to come. As expected, in the next moment, the Ryutsu spreading all over Siraidai linked up all the Shinagamis present. Bakud number 77, Tentia Kra. Attention all divisions, 3rd seat of 1st Division. Kega has refused to accept Central 40SIX's judgment and openly rebelled against Soul Society. He has currently defeated 9th Division's captain and squad members. Kega is currently leading a group of Zanpakutos towards 7th Division. Captain Commander announces Siraidai's entry into emergency status. The ban on captains releasing Zanpakutos is temporarily lifted. Additionally, Keiga's Zanpakuto has the ability to control other Shinigami Zanpakutos. All Shinigamis should avoid direct confrontation with him if possible. Captains of the 13 court guard squads hastened to 1st Division for emergency captain meeting. After Tentiacra faded, the Shinigamis remaining in the Kukaki residence were all shocked speechless. Especially Jinrei Kukaki. Keiga had been the junior Jinrei valued most, even thinking of having his daughter marrying Keiga for the latter to become the Kukaki family head and 6th Division captain after Jinrei passed away. Yet now, in a mere few days Keiga had given Jinrei such a huge surprise. First killing his son Shun Kukaki over suspecting Jinrei had rejected him. Next starting a rebellion and even controlling other Shinigami's Zanpakutos to attack Soul Society. What arrogance! However, recalling Keiga's Zanpakuto ability, Jinrei glanced at Ailen beside his daughter. Ailen, come with me. Suppressing Keiga this time will likely require your strength too. Ailen had fought Keiga before. After the initial exchange, Keiga's abilities seemed to have no effect on Ailen later on. Chapter 34, Recommended. Thinking carefully, before meeting Ailen, everything about Keiga seemed fine. But after meeting Ailen, it was as if all his flaws had been exposed. His temperament was unstable and he was extremely arrogant and unruly. Ailen, this Shinigami whom he had accidentally misunderstood before, seemed to be Keiga's nemesis. Even Keiga's most powerful abilities seemed to have no effect on Ailen. For this rebellion started by Keiga this time, Ailen might be needed to resolve it. Therefore, even though Captain Commander Yamamoto had said it was a captain's meeting, still Jinrei Kukaki prepared to bring Ailen along. Oh! Hearing Captain Jinrei's invitation, Ailen pondered for a moment before finally nodding and agreeing to attend the meeting together with him. The captains of this era were all not weak. When Captain Commander Yamamoto decided to convene a captain's meeting, apart from 7th Division Captain Love Aikawa and 9th Division Captain Kensei Maguruma, all the other captains arrived at the 1st Division in less than a minute. Captain Maguruma of 9th Division had already been confirmed defeated by Keiga. Currently, Keiga's army of manifested Zanpakutos had arrived at the 7th Division, so Love stayed behind in the 7th Division to fend off the attack from Keiga's Zanpakuto troops. As Ailen had come with Jinrei but wasn't a captain, he could only wait to be summoned in the conference hall on the side. Within the 1st Division's conference hall, 10 captains clad in their Heiori stood respectively on both sides of Captain Commander Genrisai Shigakuni Yamamoto. Even someone carefree like Shunsui Kiriko had an extraordinarily solemn expression at this moment. Because the one standing above everyone was none other than Genrisai Shigakuni Yamamoto, hailed as the strongest Shinigami in Soul Society. His peerless might had been forged from the billions of dead souls in Soul Society. Looking at his Bankai's ability, Zankan no Tachi, which could turn enemies slain by his sword into an army of skeletal warriors locked in endless slaughter against his enemies, one could see that the trillions number might be somewhat exaggerated, but tens or hundreds of millions should be accurate. Ailen on the other hand? After over 30 years as a Shinigami, the enemies he had killed didn't even exceed 300. Of course, this was also related to the Onmitsuka's nature. The 2nd Division was different from those frontline divisions battling hollows. Their enemies were mostly fellow Shinigamis. Whether it was swordsmanship, hand-to-hand combat, demon arts, or Ryutsu, Genrisai Shigakuni Yamamoto was undoubtedly at the pinnacle among Shinigamis. Before such an existence, who would dare be impudent? Ex-3rd Seat Keiga of the 1st Division has rebelled against Soul Society. Currently, Captain Maguruma of the 9th Division has been confirmed defeated while Captain Love of the 7th Division is still embroiled in bitter combat. Perhaps you're all still wondering why I haven't dispatched anyone to reinforce the 7th Division at this time. 2nd Division Captain, explain the results of your investigation so far to everyone here. All right. Yoryuki Shion nodded before folding her arms and saying under everyone's gazes, Keiga possesses the strength of a captain class and has already achieved Bankai. Oh dear, how frightening. As expected of the 1st Division even your 3rd seat is already so powerful. Although after hearing of the 9th Division's decimation, everyone already deduced the rebelling commander's strength was at least at a captain's level. But to really confirm it, they couldn't help being shocked by the 1st Division's depth. If they remembered correctly, the man who charged into the 1st Division to attack Captain Commander Yamamoto 5 years ago was also the 1st Division's ex-3rd seat at that time. In other words, 5 years ago, there had already been 4 captain-class powerhouses in the 1st Division, easily comparable to half the Godi I-13. Keiga's Zanpakuto has the ability to manifest Shinigami Zanpakuto spirits and control them. Which means all of you would be disadvantaged fighting him directly while releasing your own Zanpakuts. You must also keep your distance from him. Otherwise, the only side growing stronger will be Kaga's. What? The bulk of the captains were hearing about Kaga's abilities for the first time and were stunned. Most of their strength came from their Zanpakuts. If their Zanpakut spirits were manifested and controlled, at most they would only have 30% of their original power left. Does this ability have no weaknesses at all? Based on current intel, there indeed seems to be one weakness. Yoryuki let out a bright laugh. My third seat Kisuk Urahara was attacked by Kaga's Zanpakut before. After defeating the manifested Zanpakut, the controlled spirit's mind recovered. We don't know how long a manifested Zanpakut can keep existing, but the manifestation would be the wielder's ally during that time. However, we don't know if a restored Zanpakut spirit could fall under Kaga's control again. What a terrifying ability indeed. After hearing Yoryuki's description, Shunsui Kirikou pulled down on his straw hat. Facing this kind of enemy, he definitely shouldn't get close. Otherwise. The other captains also exchanged uneasy looks. Against this ability, none of them dared to claim certain victory. For a time, everyone sank into contemplation, thinking about how to deal with Kaga if encountered. Alright, to avoid being influenced by Kaga's Zanpakut ability, you must seal your inner worlds and battle him without releasing your Zanpakut Shikai or Bankai. Captain Commander Yamamoto swept his gaze over his captains before lingering slightly on his disciples Shunsui Kirikou and Jushiro Yukitake, then looking towards Jinrei Kokaki. It seems among all the captains, only I and Jinrei would retain a degree of fighting capacity after sealing our inner worlds. Thus, we shall personally confront Kaga this time. This is. Hearing the Captain Commander say he would take action personally, none of the captains could remain seated. Even the constantly smiling Retsu Anohana, the ever-nonchalant Syakenpeki and the flippant Shunsui Kirikou abruptly raised their heads to stare at Captain Commander Yamamoto. Captain Commander, wouldn't it be too dangerous for you to act personally? That's right, Captain Commander. Captain Cheyenne said just now that directly defeating our manifested Zanpakut spirits will restore our control. Please allow me to go instead. I'm confident in being able to seal my inner world. The one who said this was actually 4th Division Captain Retsu Anohana. As someone who had been personally defeated by Captain Commander Yamamoto 1,000 years ago, Anohana understood the Captain Commander's might better than anyone else. They had absolute faith in Captain Commander Yamamoto as the strongest Shinigami of the millennium. However, precisely because they had so much confidence in him did they know just how much damage Soul Society would suffer if Kaga somehow controlled the Captain Commander's Zanpakut after manifesting it. It might even lead to Soul Society's complete annihilation. Cough, cough. There's no need for the Captain Commander or Captain Anohana to make a move yet. I've brought along a Shinigami whose abilities seem unaffected by Kaga's powers. Why don't we call him in first to hear his opinion? Chapter 35, Captain's Meeting. Oh? There's also this matter. Jinrei Kokaki's words stunned all 10 captains present, including the Captain Commander himself. However, they soon reacted. With an ability to even control Zanpakuts appearing, having someone whose ability isn't affected doesn't seem that unacceptable. The only thing these captains felt was somewhat subtle was that the appearances of these two were a little too close in timing. Yoryuki Shihoan, captain of 2nd Division, rolled her eyes and quickly guessed who this person was. Indeed, in the next moment, Yoryuki heard a familiar name from Jinrei Kokaki's mouth. Yes, it's true. Facing the captain's doubts, Jinrei nodded. The reason Kaga rebelled was because he used Bankai during the battle with this person. And this person is the current 2nd Division Vice Captain, Alan. So it's him. At this time, everyone reacted in realization. Someone who could force Kaga to use Bankai during battle, this person's strength likely wasn't far off from Kaga's. At this moment, a thought flashed through these captains' minds. It seems like there are quite a few fearsome people hidden in Soul Society. First, the 1st Division's 2 consecutive third seats both possessed captain class power. Now, the 2nd Division's vice captain also doesn't seem lacking. They wondered if other divisions were also hiding other captain class experts. At this time, Shinji Hirako recalled the overly fake smile of his vice captain and frowned. Could that guy also? Captain Commander, Vice Captain Alan is currently waiting in the Annex Hall. Shall I call him over to participate in this captain's meeting? Yes. The situation is special now. Sure, go bring Vice Captain Alan over. As the name suggests, only the captains of the 13 court guard squads could participate in a captain's meeting. The only vice-captain who could attend was Chijiro Sasakaibe, who stood inconspicuously behind Captain Commander Yamamoto. However, people who understood Chijiro Sasakaibe wouldn't have any objections to this. After all, this guy had turned the above the captain commander's head into before. Generally, only captain candidates of the divisions would be invited to participate in captains' meetings. After being acknowledged by everyone, they would also become the new captain. But now, while all the captain positions in the 13 divisions were still filled, for someone who wasn't a captain candidate to participate in a captain's meeting, apart from Chijiro Sasakaibe, Ailin was also the first. In 1st Division's Annex Hall, Ailin, who sensed someone approaching, ended his sword forging and opened his eyes. Vice-Captain Sasakaibe. Seeing the visitor, Ailin stood up. Vice-Captain Ailin, the captain commander has instructed me to bring you to attend the captain's meeting. This way, please. Although powerful, Chijiro Sasakaibe didn't have the slightest air of a mighty figure. Instead, he was extremely courteous to everyone. The Ailin, with only vice-captain level Ryutsu from 5 days ago facing the Ryutsu of 7 to 8 captains, he would certainly embarrass himself. However, while imprisoned in 9th Division, he had forged several captain-class Zanpakuts. His current Ryutsu had firmly risen to captain class. Thus, when facing these Ryutsus now, Ailin also erupted with his own. Boom! If those captains' Ryutsus were raging tidal waves, then Ailin's Ryutsu was a majestic towering mountain. No matter how turbulent the tides, they couldn't shake the foundation of mountains in the slightest. Of course, this was also because those century-old captains hadn't made a move. Oh! Sensing Ailin's Ryutsu, these captains were somewhat surprised. After a slight nod, they withdrew their own Ryutsus. Having a captain-class Ryutsu meant Ailin could at least materialize his Zanpakut and had the potential to cultivate Bankai. He had the qualifications to stand together with them. Captain-class Ryutsu. Jinrei's eyes narrowed slightly. If he remembered correctly, when fighting Keiga that night, Vice-Captain Ailin's Ryutsu was only at a vice-captain's level. It was only after releasing his Zanpakut did his Ryutsu leap to a captain's level. Did he already have hidden strength back then? Or was there further growth these past few days? This question swirled in Jinrei's mind before he eventually discarded it. Breaking through vice-captain to captain class in just a few days' time, how was that possible? When the captains withdrew their Ryutsus, Ailin also correspondingly restrained his own. 2nd Division Vice-Captain Ailin, I pay my respects to Captain Commander Yamamoto, Captain Shihoan, Captain Kukaki, and all captains present. After entering the conference hall, Ailin greeted each captain before standing quietly with clasped hands at the lowest position, awaiting their questioning. Vice-Captain Ailin, Kukaki told me your Zanpakut can't be controlled by Keiga's Zanpakut. Can you tell this old man what special ability your Zanpakut has? Captain Commander Yamamoto cut straight to the chase, directly asking about Ailin's Zanpakut ability. With Keiga's rebellion, Captain Commander Yamamoto felt that any Zanpakut abilities posing immense danger must be kept under surveillance to prevent further turmoil. My Zanpakut's name is Unlimited Blade Works. Its ability is Sword Creation. Patting the Zanpakut by his waist, Ailin didn't hide anything about his Zanpakut's abilities. He only concealed the fact that he could also create other captains' Zanpakuts. In fact, it isn't that my Zanpakut can't be controlled by Keiga's. But after sensing that I was losing control over my own, I swiftly forged a sword that wasn't affected. Oh! Hearing Ailin's answer, the other captains slightly nodded. An ability to forge swords? And even forge swords specifically targeting the enemy's abilities. It sounds quite powerful. Chapter 36, Assigned. An ability to forge swords. The Zanpakuto Genryusai Shigakuni Yamamoto had seen over this millennium flashed through his mind. He eventually confirmed that in Soul Society's history, there had been 2 others who possessed the ability to forge swords. That was in an age when even Shinagamis did not have Zanpakuto. The first was the founder of the Kazumiji clan, who forged blades that could absorb a Shinagami's Ryutsu and demonstrate even greater power. The second was Nimeyaitsu, who forged the original Zanpakuto. Without a doubt, these 2 were powerhouses of that era. Moreover, after Zanpakuto were established as the Shinagami's exclusive weapons, the latter advanced to the royal palace and became a member of the Royal Guard's 0 Division. Would Ailin grow to their level? Yamamoto did not know the answer to that question. But at the very least, Being able to forge a sword unaffected by Koga's Zanpakuto made Aelin the best candidate to face Koga at this time. Of course, before that, Yamamoto needed to confirm one more thing. Vice Captain Aelin, I need you to answer truthfully. Have you achieved Bankai? Hearing the Captain Commander's question, all the captains turned their gazes onto Aelin. When Aelin entered the hall earlier, he had already passed their test. Captain Class Ryutsu. One of the unspoken criteria to become a Godi 13 captain was successfully manifesting one's Zanpakuto's Bankai. If Aelin had already achieved Bankai, that meant he was on the same level as them. The only thing he lacked was the rank of a captain. Even Yoriuki Shihoan watched Aelin with great interest. To her, this vice-captain had caught her eye 5 years ago when he challenged Marino Shinmada to a duel. Afterwards, she mainly learned about him from Shaolin Fon. At that time, his Zanpakuto could unleash slicing wind strikes. A few days ago, his Zanpakuto was wreathed in flames, capable of both wind and fire attacks. Back then, Yoriuki thought it was the first Zanpakuto in Soul Society's history that could wield 2 elements. Now it seems those were weapons forged by Vice Captain Aelin. If this guy had achieved Bankai, what would his Bankai be? Yes, Captain Commander. I have attained Bankai for my Zanpakuto. Aelin's reply stunned everyone once more. Especially Yoriuki. As his vice-captain, she knew Aelin had joined 2nd Division right after graduating. Currently, he should be around 50 years old. What astonishing talent! His current level probably didn't fall short of hers back then. Jinrei Kukaki was also delighted inside. He couldn't deny feeling regret over losing a future son-in-law like Koga. But now it seems his daughter's eye for people didn't fall short of his own. No. Recalling Aelin's clearly superior swordsmanship and shunpo compared to Koga, perhaps his daughter's judgment surpassed even his. Yamamoto opened both eyes. Then tell me, can you defeat Koga and restore peace to Sirei? Yes. Dealing with 3rd seat Koga won't be an issue. Aelin stared straight at Captain Commander Yamamoto without the slightest retreat. Right now within his reality marble, his Muramasa stood guard. Koga's existence wouldn't affect his weapons at all. This was Aelin's greatest confidence in facing Koga. Very good. Then Vice Captain Aelin, I entrust you with capturing Koga and quelling this rebellion in Sirei. Do not disappoint me. By your command, Captain Commander. After respectfully saluting Yamamoto and the other captains, Aelin exited the hall. Next, he sensed Koga's Ryutsu and streaked towards 7th Division as a black shadow. Damn it! Love Aikawa crashed heavily onto the ground, his whole body drenched in blood. I'm still too weak. With his Zanpakuto under the enemy's control, Love could only fight using Shikai and Bankai. He was utterly defeated in the end. Humph! Koga waved his hand to stop Love's Zanpakuto from continuing its attack before signaling the manifested Zanpakuto to drag Love behind where the other captured Shinagamis were gathered. From starting his rebellion until now, Koga had taken over 9th Division and 7th Division with over 1,000 manifested Zanpakutos under his command. That included 2 captain class and 47-seat officer class Zanpakutos. Yet among the deaths so far, the number of Shinagamis didn't exceed 50. Not because Koga was kind-hearted and unwilling to kill. Rather, if these Shinagamis were slain, their corresponding manifested Zanpakutos would fade after a period of time too. Koga harbored ambitions of overthrowing the 13 divisions and becoming the supreme ruler of Soul Society himself. To a certain degree, these Shinagamis were also his soldiers. If he could truly rule over Soul Society in the future, Koga actually wished for these Shinagamis to never perish. Tengumaru stood behind Koga and lined up behind Muramasa. Beside Tengumaru was the 9th Division Captain's Zanpakuto, Tekken Tachikaze. Next. Koga raised his head, glancing around in all directions. 9th Division and 7th Division were completely under his control now. Koga currently had 2 options. 1. Use 9th Division as the center and occupy the neighboring divisions encircling 1st Division in rings before launching an assault on 1st Division with absolutely crushing force. The second option was staking everything on a desperate gamble to lead his current forces on a direct charge at 1st Division. Based on the memories Muramasa extracted from 7th Division Captain Love, 1st Division had sounded the assembly for an emergency captains meeting not long ago. Currently, all captains of the 13 divisions were gathered at 1st Division. If he could enter the captains' assembly hall and subjugate their Zanpakutos, wouldn't everything in Sirei be under his control then? Thinking so, killing intent flashed through Koga's eyes. Muramasa. Whoosh. But before Koga could give the order, rays of light suddenly shot at him from the side. Bankai, Tekken Tachi Kaze. An armor-clad humanoid wielding spiked gauntlets on both hands appeared before Koga. It had a metallic cable connecting its gauntlets to the armor on its back. The humanoid met the incoming rays with a punch, concentrating surging blades of wind around its fists that exploded outwards, blowing the light attack away to crash through a nearby building instead. Clang! Only now did Koga see that the deflected beam of light was actually a sword stabbed into the ground. Chapter 37, Face Off Again. Seeing this Zanpakuto, Kaga's eyes filled with terrifying killing intent as he looked towards the figure rapidly approaching. Yo, long time no see, third seat Kaga. Stopping about 30 meters in front of Kaga, Aelin waved at Kaga with a smile. To the others in Soul Society, Kaga was a traitor who started a rebellion. But to Aelin, Kaga was his lucky star. Well, of course the one who made Aelin meet Kaga, Haruko Kukaki, was even more of Aelin's lucky star. Just look, after meeting Kaga for just a few days, all the Zanpakutos of the 13 Court Guard squad captains had been completely copied by Aelin. He just needed to resolve Kaga's rebellion, then Aelin could take the time to make each of these Zanpakutos. By then, Aelin's Ryotsu would surely rise again. Additionally, the experiences of these Zanpakutos owners would also bring about a qualitative change to Aelin's Zanjutsu. For bringing all these benefits to himself, Aelin was still very grateful to Kaga in his heart. Aelin! Kaga burned with fury. It was this person who had ruined everything of his. If not for Aelin's appearance, he, Kaga, would have become Haruko's husband, the Kukaki family head in the future, as well as the future 6th Division captain. But because of Aelin, now he had lost everything. Indeed, long time no see. Although the two had just parted last night, their identities, strengths and beliefs were now worlds apart from yesterday. It felt as if a long time had passed. But still, I have to thank you. It was you who made me see the hypocrisy of this world. To thank you, I'll have your Zanpakuto become my power. Kaga then pointed his Zanpakuto at Aelin. Bankai, Mukjaish Muramasa. Boom! Tremendous Ryotsu erupted from Kaga as a purple aura spread outwards with him at the center. These past few days, Kaga had reviewed his battle with Aelin over and over in his mind. He remembered that before Aelin had released his Zanpakuto, his own Muramasa had indeed controlled Aelin's, forcing Aelin to damaging his right hand with Kid to throw away his Zanpakuto. This time, Kaga decided to seize Aelin's Zanpakuto right at the start, making it his assistant. Additionally, the materialized Zanpakutos around Kaga also surged at Aelin like a tidal wave. Kaga was preparing to kill Aelin in the fastest speed possible. Perhaps Aelin's Zanpakuto ability was powerful, but just based on it being immune to Muramasa's control after releasing, that was already enough for Kaga to decide Aelin couldn't be allowed to live. No one liked something beyond their control. Especially when that something's existence was their nemesis. As the purple aura spread past Aelin's body, the materialized Muramasa had found Aelin's inner world, entering unlimited blade works. Within Aelin's innate boundary, Muramasa's eyes widened in shock, frightened stiff by everything he saw. This was the soul space of that Shinigami from just now? A Shinigami could only have one Zanpakuto, right? So why were there so many Zanpakuto existences here? And if he wasn't seeing wrongly, behind that Shinigami was his own figure? Welcome, Muramasa. Unfortunately, from the day I awakened this ability, anyone entering this space has to die. After speaking, Aelin turned and left. At the same time, his voice echoed within this innate boundary. Everyone, I know you've been rather bored recently. This guy here is to entertain you. My only requirement is that he can't leave here alive. Everything else is up to you. Impossible. In the outside world, Kaga felt like he had lost his connection with Muramasa. Muramasa's Bankai invaded the enemy's soul space, using some method to turn the opponent's Zanpakuto against them, stirring up resentment until the Zanpakuto submitted to Muramasa's control. Because time flowed differently in soul spaces, the instigated Zanpakuto would materialize almost immediately in reality after being controlled. But now, not only was there no materialized Zanpakuto from Aelin, even his own Muramasa hadn't appeared. Why is it impossible? Aelin opened his eyes, smiling as he asked Kaga, third seat Kaga, you couldn't even control my Zanpakuto 6 days ago. Why would you think you can control it now? Moreover, haven't you considered that I have the absolute strength and confidence to come recapture you alone? Aelin's words made Kaga's pupils constrict violently. The next moment, Kaga's crazed voice yelled out. All of you, kill him! Whoosh! Over 40 Zanpakutos with clear forms and 500 plus shadowy Zanpakuto silhouettes charged madly at Aelin under Kaga's order. Projection. Buzz buzz buzz. Spiritual power surged as numerous swords materialized overhead, transforming into beams of light that shot down like raging storms at the incoming Zanpakutos. Boom boom boom. Ah! For a time, explosions and miserable screams sounded continuously. At least over 100 Zanpakutos died in that volley. Their shadowy forms dissipated as their physical sword forms broke into segments, falling onto the ground. After that sword rain, a sword forest had appeared before Aelin. Beneath the forest were countless shattered Zanpakuto fragments. Kill. Despite Aelin insta-killing hundreds of materialized Zanpakutos in one move, the remaining ones still swarmed towards Aelin like bees to honey under Kaga's command. Whoosh! Aelin's body turned into an afterimage, dashing into the sword forest. He randomly pulled out a Zanpakuto from the ground and moved as quick as lightning, piercing through dozens of Zanpakutos. Shing shing! Blood splattered everywhere. These Zanpakutos fell in bewilderment, not even seeing how they were struck before death. Whoosh! Within the crisscrossing shadows, Aelin would pick a new sword from the forest almost every time after killing 7 to 8 materialized Zanpakutos, continuing his rampage. Every sword change also brought some adjustment to Aelin's battling style. Be it as fast as the wind, quick as lightning, mighty as a mountain or violently raging like an inferno. Any Zanpakuto entering the forest would be slaughtered by Aelin before even reaching a third of the way in. That's right, this was no longer battle, but outright slaughter. Chapter 38, Demon Arts Showdown. Shred him, Wind Lamentation. Explode, Butterfly Dance Bird. Roar, Reverse Lightning of Heaven Rebellion. After a batch of ordinary Shinigami Zanpakutos were killed, the seated officer-level Zanpakutos also began close combat with Aelin. Compared to those Zanpakutos without even a clear form, they, who had achieved Shikai, could feel the difference between them and Aelin even more clearly. Therefore, upon entering the sword forest, these Zanpakutos with distinct shapes began releasing their own abilities one after another. In an instant, over a dozen powerful Ryutsus surged as wind, fire, lightning, and other elements assaulted Aelin. Facing these attacks, Aelin raised the sword in his hand with a low chant, calling out this blade's true name. Baku Saiga. Boom! As Aelin called out, endless purple lightning spread from the Zanpakuto in Aelin's hand. This was a weapon from the same world as Tessagah. Its might wasn't inferior to Tessagah in the slightest. Endless purple lightning gathered atop Baku Saiga before finally coalescing into an enormous purple lightning dragon that thundered towards the incoming attacks. Sriha! Azure Dragon Break! Roar! Boom 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 boom! Beneath Baku Saiga's Sriha, the dozen or so seated officer-level Zanpakutos didn't have the slightest ability to resist. They were directly blasted apart by the lightning dragon. Moreover, the lightning dragon twisted and turned as it encompassed all dozen plus of the seated officer Zanpakutos into its attack range before drowning them in its peerless lightning. After the lightning dragon dissipated, there was now a 100-meter-long ravine before Aelin with lingering lightning still crackling within. As for those dozen-plus seated officers Zanpakutos, they had already been completely obliterated by that one lightning dragon. This terrifying strike shook the remaining Zanpakutos so much that even their charge forward halted. But under Kaga's control, they still swarmed towards Aelin. This time, the two captain-class Zanpakutos, Tengumaru and Tachikaze, also joined the assault. Bankai! Boom! After Tachikaze, Tengumaru also activated Bankai. After all, they were merely Zanpakutos, a portion of a Shinigami's power. Without a wielder's Ryutsu to support them, a Zanpakuto's abilities were actually much weaker compared to a complete captain class. If a Shinigami's Shunk cultivation was high enough, using just Shikai could also defeat a Zanpakuto's Bankai. With Aelin's current strength, if he didn't use Bankai, they didn't have much chance of winning against him. Whoosh! As Tengumaru activated Bankai, Aelin beckoned with his hand as blue spirit particles gathered in his palm, quickly coalescing into a Zanpakuto. Flame Wind Scar Tessagah! Boom! Scorching flames wrapped around the enlarged fang-like blade. Aelin raised the fiery Tessagah high overhead as spiraling winds spun around it, siphoning Ryutsu from the incoming attacks. Flame Wind Scar Bakuriha! Boom 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 boom! As Aelin slashed out, the berserk attack transformed into a fiery dragon that spiraled outwards. Tessaga's Jibakuriha, Backlash Wave, was a skill that could manipulate an enemy's attacks and Ryotsuba before reflecting them back magnified. All of the attacks aimed at Aelin were swept up by that fiery dragon, merging into the fiery column and enhancing its power even more. Beneath this absolutely overpowered G, none of the remaining Zanpakutos could escape. All of them were dragged in by their own Ryotsuba as they were shredded apart by the slicing winds within the fiery tornado. Not even Tengumaru and Tachikaze were exceptions. Trash, all trash. You're all trash. Seeing the forces he worked hard to gather be completely annihilated by Aelin, Keiga bellowed in rage. Wasn't this just making it obvious he had wasted half a day doing something utterly pointless? In his fury, Keiga even looked at his own Zanpakuto as if it was garbage. You're also trash. Muramasa. Beneath Aelin's Bakuriha, 7th Division had basically become ruins. Everywhere was burning fire, scorched blast marks and collapsed buildings. Surrender, 3rd Seat Keiga. Bakusaiga was in Aelin's left hand and the fiery Tessaga was in his right hand. Purple lightning and crimson flames dyed the skies on both sides of Aelin purple and red. With your current crimes, you would at most be imprisoned in the Mukin for a few thousand or tens of thousands of years. Humph. Keiga coldly sneered, don't bluster, brat. I'm not trash like them. Head number 71, Rippuku. With a wave of his hand, violet spiritual power gathered into a point before Keiga and dispersed outwards into 8 directions in straight lines before right-angling towards Aelin. Bakud number 73, Tozenshi. Faced with Keiga's demon art attack, Aelin was utterly fearless as a semi-transparent triangular barrier appeared before him. Boom 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 boom. The light rays collided against the transparent barrier, resulting in deafening blasts. But ultimately, those 8 light rays failed to penetrate through Tozanshi's defensive barrier. Whoosh! Head number 34, Kumbaku. Head number 33, Skatsui. Boom! Bakud number 62, Hyaporan Kan. Bakud number 63, Saj Sabaku. Crimson flames and azure flames interweaved as pillars of light and binding chains danced together. Without even engaging in close combat, Keiga and Aelin had already begun vying against each other in demon arts. It had to be said, for Keiga to succeed a prodigy who died under Captain Commander Yamamoto as the commander of the detention unit and 3rd Seat, his own strength wasn't lacking. But compared to Aelin, he still fell short by more than just a bit. Possessing the experiences of multiple captain-class individuals, Aelin could now be said to have complete mastery over demon arts. No matter whether Keiga used had destructive spells or Bakud binding spells, Aelin would instantly retaliate with even stronger Kid. After Keiga revealed a tiny flaw, Aelin extended his left index finger that crackled with lightning. Head number 4, Byakurai. Boom! This bolt of lightning tore through the veil of flames and smoke to strike Keiga's left arm directly, boring a bloody hole through his shoulder. In the next moment, Keiga flickered away with Shunpo from their demon arts deadlock. Damn it! Glancing at the wound on his left shoulder, Keiga's fury deepened even more. He didn't expect that he would actually lose in a contest of demon arts. Very good, you damn brat, Aelin. You've succeeded in pissing me off. I'll let you witness my true power this time. Chapter 39, Bankai, Heaven-Piercing Sword. Oh? 3rd Seat Keiga's stomach is still quite beyond my imagination. I thought I had already made him angry. Hearing Keiga's roar, Aelin shook his head and smiled. Humph, I hope your mouth will still be so hard later. Keiga was speechless for a moment, his face even stiffened, and finally only uttered another vicious remark. Then, wielding his Zanpakuto, his figure kept flashing as he charged at Aelin. Whoosh! 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 In a few flashes, Keiga had already appeared in front of Aelin, slashing his Zanpakuto directly at Aelin. Wind Scar! Aelin waved his left hand, and 3 sky-piercing wind slashes tore through the air, instantly submerging Keiga. But the next moment, the Keiga that was slashed by Aelin instantly turned into an afterimage. On the other side, Keiga's figure appeared on Aelin's right, slashing his Zanpakuto at Aelin again. Azure Dragon Break. With lightning flashing in his right hand, a purple thunder dragon tore Keiga's figure apart. Boom! The purple thunder dragon and wind slashes wreaked havoc on the 7th Division again. Unfortunately, Aelin's 2 powerful moves did not truly hit Keiga. After using illusions to deceive Aelin's attacks 3 or 5 times, Koga's real body appeared behind Alan, slashing his Zanpakuto directly at Alan. Crackle. Unfortunately, Kaga's slash did not truly attack Alan either. A circle of purple barriers appeared around Alan, blocking Kaga's attack. Whoosh. The next moment, 2 rays of blade lights flashed by as Alan slashed Koga's body into 2 halves. But then this body shattered like an afterimage. Alan's expression congealed slightly. He knew that the reason why he had slashed Koga's illusions several times was because he had already been affected by Koga's ability. This was the true power Koga had talked about. Although Alan had been cautious earlier, he did not regard it as a formidable threat. Don't forget, apart from what Alan knew about Kage Hoshino's, that person was called Kage Kukaki, abilities from before his transmigration. Alan had also created Muramasa on the night he was thrown into 9th Division's prison. When Alan grasped Muramasa, he already knew about the trump card ability Kage viewed it as. Muramasa's true ability was to invade a Shinigami's inner world and provoke their Zanpakuto through words or force, magnifying their dissatisfaction towards their master or their love for battle, achieving the goal of controlling the opponent. And this ability was bred from Kaga's own innate power. It was an ability that could invade the enemy's body through one's Ryutsu and make the enemy produce visual discrepancies, similar to but not as powerful as Aizen's complete hypnosis. Even so, it was enough to demonstrate the formidable might of Koga's ability. It was just a pity that Alan had only created Muramasa for a few days after all. Gaining more of Koga's information through Muramasa was already Alan's current limit. If Alan was given more time to fully absorb Kaga's experiences, defeating him would naturally not be difficult. But now, after being continuously eating dirt a few times, Alan could feel how tricky this ability was. He couldn't defeat Kage relying on Tessugah and Bakusaiga while affected by Koga's ability. Crackle crackle crackle. Crack. This time in battle, the Zanpakuto Alan released was his true Zanpakuto, Unlimited Blade Works. Thus, when using other weapons' special moves, Alan only needed to separately release 1/10 of those weapons' bankais. As such, Azure Dragon Break and Wind Scar were unleashed continuously in Alan's hands, with endless thunder and wind roars. Unfortunately, these attacks still did not truly strike Koga. On the flip side, beneath Kaga's assaults, the sheath on Alan's waist had already cracked open with several fissures. Once Tessugah's sheath shattered, with his protective barrier gone while facing Koga's attacks, Alan would definitely be injured. Thinking so, the Tessugah and Bakusaiga in Alan's hands dissipated into spirit particles. No, it wasn't just the long swords in his hands. The entire sword forest around Alan had turned into spirit particles as well, reclaimed by Alan back into his reality marble. Oh! Seeing this scene, Kaga's eyes narrowed slightly. What's wrong? Realized the gap between us, so you want to surrender. The barrier around Alan made it very difficult for Kage to attack Alan. But obviously, Kage had also noticed the weakness in Alan's barrier. After several attacks, the sheath bearing that barrier was already on the verge of collapse. Third Seat Kage, when did you start harboring the misconception that you surpassed me? I won't deny that your ability is indeed extraordinary. At least the current me still hasn't found a way to expose your real body. However, Alan stretched out a hand as concentric ripples undulated before Alan's right hand, a Zanpakuto extending out from the ripple's center that Alan gripped with his hand. Shine! As Alan shouted out, the Zanpakuto in his hand transformed into what seemed like a mirror-like double-edged straight sword. Third Seat Kage, your ability has a range limit, right? Alan looked towards Kage, not caring whether the current Kage was an illusion or the real body. Judging from your previous few attacks, the distance between each of your illusions and real body wouldn't exceed 10 meters. Tell me, if my attack range has a radius of 300 meters around me, how much effect would your ability still have? What? Under Kage's horrified gaze, Alan raised the mirror-like straight sword high overhead with both hands. Bankai, Heaven-Piercing Sword. Heaven-Piercing Sword originated from the Sword Art Online, Alicization Arc's Integrity Knight Fanatio's weapon that Alan retained memories of. Its initial release armament Full Control Art could absorb the surrounding spirit particles and fire them as laser attacks at the enemy. Its final release Memories Release could absorb massive amounts of spirit particles from the surroundings for concentrated laser bombardment over a wide area around the user, as well as condense those lasers into an overwhelmingly powerful pillar of sacred light to smash the enemy. What Alan was currently displaying was Heaven-Piercing Sword's power after Memories Release. With Alan at the center, massive amounts of spirit particles converged onto Alan's Heaven-Piercing Sword, causing it to look like a miniature sun. Then in an instant, this mini-sun blossomed with countless rays of light, irradiating in all directions. Boom boom boom. Chapter 40, Victory. Siraidai, 1st Division. Ever since ordering Alan to go subdue Keiga Hoshino, Captain Commander Yamamoto and the other 11 captains had all gathered in the 1st Division Captain's office. As the supreme division among the 13 court guard squads, 1st Division's Captain's office commanded the highest vantage point over almost half of Siraidai. From here, the commotion at 7th Division was also within their line of sight. Although too far to see the exact battle, as captain class experts, they observed the fight more through sensing the clashes of Ryutsu between both sides. Moreover, while the specifics weren't visible, even here at 1st Division, they could feel the tremendous destructive power behind those heaven-piercing slashes and raging dragon roars. Vice Captain Alan's strength probably doesn't count as weak even among us. These words came from 3rd Division Captain, RJR Torabashi. Every captain held absolute confidence in themselves. For one to say such words showed just how much they approved of Alan. Especially that final release of Ryutsu from Alan, as well as that sun-like orb of terror. Perhaps only Syakenpeki, who had fused with his Zanpakuto, saw this battle most clearly among them. When Alan last released that Zanpakuto, Sya oddly recalled that his division seemed to have a seated officer whose Zanpakuto commanded light. What was that kid's name again? Ah yes, Maki Ichinos. He wondered if he could reach Vice Captain Alan's level of power when he grew up in the future. The victor is decided. After the mini-sun dissipated, the captains sensed Keiga's Ryutsu drop to an extremely dangerous level. Clearly, beneath Alan's final move, Keiga had suffered heavy injuries and lost all ability to resist. Everyone, Vice Captain Alan has successfully subdued the traitor Keiga Hoshino. Let us go to the Captain's Assembly Hall first to await Vice Captain Alan's arrival and hold a celebratory banquet for him. Yes, Captain Commander. Led by Captain Commander Yamamoto, the captains headed towards the meeting hall. On the way there, 6th Division Captain Jinrei Kukaki intentionally approached 2nd Division Captain Yoryuki Shion. Captain Shion, may I trouble you for a moment? Oh. Yoryuki looked curiously at Jinrei Kukaki before realization flashed in her eyes. Uncle Kukaki jests. As my senior, it is only proper for this junior to accommodate your request. Indeed, in terms of seniority, Jinrei Kukaki was of the same generation as Yoryuki's father. His age differed by less than 100 years. Compared to Yoryuki being her father's only daughter, Jinrei had a son and daughter, a rather thriving family line. Unfortunately, while Yoryuki's father only had her, Yoryuki had risen swiftly. In less than 200 years, she took over as 2nd Division Captain and family head from her father, allowing him to retire early and enjoy life. On the other hand, neither of Jinrei's children amounted to much, forcing him to shoulder the clan and 6th Division Captain duties alone. Now, despite being contemporaries, Yoryuki's father was still a robust middle-aged man while Jinrei was already decrepit with age. With Keiga killing Shun, all that remained of the Kukaki clan's main family was the weak Haruko. Seeing his vice-captain at the Kukaki residence previously, Jinrei's intention in seeking her out was obvious even without saying anything. Sure enough, Jinrei spoke straight to the point, asking if Yoryuki could transfer Alan over. Captain Shion, with 3rd Seat Keiga's rebellion, my 6th Division vice-captain is dead, causing great damage to 6th Division's strength. Seeing 2nd Division's abundance of talents, I wish to ask Captain Shion for someone to take over my 6th Division's vice-captain position. Does Captain Shion have any conditions? Jinrei's words nearly made Yoryuki lose her composure. Were the old geezers of this generation all so shameless? The greatest losses from Keiga's rebellion should be 7th Division as the final battlefield, and 9th Division for gathering at the entrance of the Central 46 compound right as the rebellion started. While it was true that 6th Division lost a vice-captain to Keiga, who in the 13 Division's upper echelon didn't know how Shun Kukaki got that position. At most, Shun's death just meant 6th Division lost a 4th or 5th seat. With a more capable vice-captain, their overall strength might even rise instead of falling greatly. But, thinking of the Kukaki clan's current state with only the aged Jinrei supporting them, Yoryuki didn't expose his lies either. Uncle Kukaki, I'm sure you also know 2nd Division's special characteristics. Wanting our division members to transfer still needs the captain commander's approval. Indeed, for other divisions, captains only needed to nod for members to transfer or retire. But as the covered ops division, 2nd Division handled highly classified missions, even exposing members to secrets ordinary Shinagamis would never encounter in their lifetimes. Especially the Stealth Force and Patrol Corps, unless holding other special identities, they could only serve for life in the division until old age or death in battle. Don't worry, as long as you give the word, I'll talk to the Captain Commander. Well, since he had already said so much, Yuryuki was happy to let Aelin go. Then if Uncle Kokaki can persuade that person and the Captain Commander, I have no issues. Boom 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 boom. With Aelin's heaven-piercing sword at the center, everything within 300 meters was engulfed by countless dense laser beams. In the next moment, tremendous explosions bloomed into dozens of meters tall mushroom clouds. The invisible shockwaves raised 7th Division flat as they rippled out from the mushroom clouds. After the ash clouds dispersed, the only spot untouched was where Aelin stood. Everywhere else had become tens of meters deep craters. Sensing Kaga's Ryutsu, Aelin's figure flickered as he appeared at the crater bottom. Cough cough, cough cough. Damn! Where was Kaga's previous arrogance now? His entire body had dozens of penetrating wounds. His left hand and half his torso were already blown apart. His vitality was barely hovering at the limit. It seemed like he could perish at any moment. No, not seemed. He truly was about to die. Seeing the viciousness still present in Kaga's eyes, Aelin raised the heaven-piercing sword in his hand. White spirit particles converged at the sword's tip, gathering into a beam that shot towards Kaga's head. Whoosh! Chapter 41, Kaga must die. Feeling the heat in front of his forehead, Kaga swallowed his saliva. The viciousness in his eyes had turned into fear. Just now, if Aelin's sword had moved down a bit more, his head would have likely been blasted apart. At the very last moment, Aelin still raised the heaven-piercing sword up a bit, sparing Kaga's life for now. Third seat Kaga, compared to now, I actually prefer your previous unruly and unyielding self. At the very least, killing that you would give me a sense of accomplishment. As for you now. Aelin shook his head, a trace of disdain flashing in his eyes, you really aren't worth me delivering the finishing blow. Treasure the last bit of your time. After you die, I'll bring your body back to 1st Division to report. Consider this my final mercy towards you. Damn you. Kaga was utterly humiliated. He became famous at a young age and was invited to join 1st Division, the strongest division among the 13 court guard squads, becoming one of their members. After awakening his Zanpakuto, he perfectly completed many tricky missions, earning him the favor of many division members as he steadily rose to become 4th seat of 1st Division. 5 years ago, after Captain Commander Yamamoto's disciple died, he took another step forward to become the commander of the detention unit. When had someone so proud as him ever suffered such humiliation before? Pfft! In the end, Kaga spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes bulged wide as his body convulsed once before losing all signs of life. He didn't die by Aelin's sword. Instead, he was angered to death by Aelin's words. Sensing Kaga's Ryutsu disappear, Aelin dismissed the heaven-piercing sword in his hand. Bakud number 4, Hainawa. A rope of Ryutsu bound Kaga Hoshino's corpse before Aelin picked it up and flickered towards 1st Division using Shunpo. Kaga could have lived originally. But who told him to use his Bankai against Aelin, letting Muramasa invade Aelin's inner world? Zanpakutos were forged by Etsunomiya, who had already been promoted to the Royal Guard. Through the cultivation method called Jinzen, Shinagamis fuse their souls with the Asachi to give birth to the spirits of their Zanpakutos. As long as the Shinigami still lived, even if their Zanpakuto's spirit died, it would coalesce again after a period of time from the Shinigami. Just like the Shinagamis of 7th Division and 9th Division whose Zanpakutos were controlled by Kaga. Although all their Zanpakutos were destroyed by Aelin now, after a period of Jinzen cultivation, their Zanpakutos would be restored completely. At most, they just wouldn't be able to use their Zanpakuto's abilities during the period their Zanpakutos hadn't recovered yet, greatly reducing their strength temporarily. Muramasa had found out many secrets Aelin didn't want others knowing within his reality marble. If those secrets spread, Aelin would become targeted for extermination by the entire Soul Society. So Muramasa had to die. Kaga, who could revive Muramasa and possibly learn of Aelin's true abilities from Muramasa's mouth, also had to die. On this point, even if Captain Commander Yamamoto said otherwise to his face, Aelin would not change his decision. Within Aelin's reality marble, Muramasa was barely fending off over a dozen materialized Zanpakutos stronger than him. Without his instigation abilities having any effect, he could only become a sandbag for the others to toy with. At a certain moment, Muramasa, who was being ganged up on, suddenly felt the source of his Ryuryoku cut off. Keiga. Muramasa's pupils constricted violently. Zanpakuto's Ryutsu and Ryuryoku originated from their Shinigami. Even the rebelling Zanpakutos were no exception to this. When a Zanpakuto could no longer supplement its Ryutsu, only two possibilities existed. Either its master was dead, or their consciousness was sealed away. Ever since entering this Shinigami's inner world, Muramasa knew his master didn't stand any chance against him. But for Keiga to be defeated so quickly still wasn't something Muramasa expected. As Muramasa suffered heavy injuries from several powerful Zanpakuto attacks due to his Ryuryoku being cut off, what he hoped was that his master wasn't dead but merely sealed away instead. Whoosh! Whoosh! Even while carrying Keiga's corpse, Ailen's speed didn't seem affected much at all. In less than 30 seconds, Ailen had already arrived at 1st Division and entered the Captain's Assembly Hall. Captain Commander, the traitor Keiga Hoshino from Soul Society has been defeated. It's unfortunate I had no choice but to go all out due to third seat Keiga's formidable strength, resulting in me being unable to capture him alive. I seek the Captain Commander's forgiveness for this misstep. Within the hall, Ailen gently placed Keiga's corpse right in the center before pleading guilty to Captain Commander Yamamoto. After all, no matter how one looked at it, Keiga Hoshino was still 1st Division's third seat. Even if he betrayed Soul Society in the end, that didn't mean Captain Commander Yamamoto held no feelings towards him whatsoever. Now that Keiga died by Ailen's hand, no one knew what Captain Commander Yamamoto's mood was like currently. Of course, everyone understood that no matter how heartbroken the Captain Commander felt, he wouldn't punish Ailen over personal feelings. Seeing Keiga's blood-drenched corpse, the captains also sighed at the might behind Ailen's final blow. If it were them under that attack instead, not many dared to claim they could have survived either. Keiga was already so powerful that he could consecutively defeat the captains of 9th Division and 7th Division. Him losing only because you held back and allowed him to stir up greater turmoil would have truly been your wrongdoing instead. These words came from 6th Division Captain Jinrei Kukaki. Ailen nodded gratefully at Jinrei Kukaki. Although he knew Old Man Yama wouldn't be malicious over personal feelings, Ailen would still be under the Captain Commander for a very long time. Having the boss less displeased with him was something Ailen was still very thankful for. This old fart sure knew how to handle things. On the other hand, his own captain, Yoryuki Shion, just watched Keiga's corpse with keen interest, not even bothering to stand up for him. Captain Kukaki is right. Vice Captain Ailen, you have rendered great merits in suppressing this rebellion. Where is the wrong in that? Captain Commander Genrisai Shigakuni Yamamoto opened his eyes a sliver, approving of Ailen's contributions this time. In just 5 short years, 1st Division had lost 2 juniors the Captain Commander cared greatly for. If Captain Commander Yamamoto said he didn't feel somewhat sad, that would be a lie. But when he saw Keiga's hideous corpse, the sadness in his heart all transformed into anger towards Keiga's lack of remorse right till his death. Chapter 42, Clearing Up Suspicions. Genrisai Shigakuni Yamamoto, who slaughtered countless lives, could tell at a glance from Keiga's injuries that he had suffered heavy injuries and died from the tremendous mental impact of this vast disparity. Of course, if Ailen's final strike had been just a bit lower, blowing a hole through Keiga's head instead, how Yamamoto would have felt would be another matter altogether. Vice Captain Ailen, you performed outstandingly in this subjugation mission. If you have any requests, feel free to ask this old man, and I will consider fulfilling them for you. In the captain's office, the other captains showed no reaction to the Captain Commander's words. All along, Captain Commander Yamamoto felt that maintaining the stability of Soul Society was the responsibility of all Shinigamis in the 13 Court Guard squads. Since they enjoyed the privileges of Shinigami's superiority, naturally they also bore the responsibilities and obligations to give everything for Soul Society. Among them, the captains of the 13 Court Guard squads stood at the pinnacle of all Shinigamis. So completing any mission was their proper duty. Ailen was currently only a vice captain, yet he had accomplished a subjugation mission that even the captains mobilizing might not necessarily complete. The captains had no issues with rewarding him. Such a good thing? Regarding the Captain Commander's promised reward, Ailen directly made his request. Captain Commander, through this battle, I feel my mastery of demon arts still needs improvement. So I wish to enter the archives of the Demon Arts Institute to study more advanced demon arts. I hope Captain Commander can permit this. In fact, for Ailen, who had already copied all the captain's Zanpakutos, as long as he was given time to produce all these Zanpakutos and completely absorb their master's experiences to integrate into himself, his limits would rise without bound. However, swordsmanship, shunpo, and hakuta could still be said to depend on innate talent. Without higher-tier incantations for demon arts, the advanced demon arts Aelin knew would become contraband he couldn't actually cast. By making this request now, Aelin hoped to legitimize his later advanced demon arts. If he entered the archives of the Demon Arts Institute, who could know how many demon arts incantations he jotted down? Very well. Aelin Vice Captain, I will directly explain to the Grand Kid Chief Tessite Tsukabishi to allow you to enter the Demon Arts Institute and study demon arts for 3 months. During this time, aside from forbidden arts, the archives of the Demon Arts Institute will be completely open to you. Also, if you have any questions, you can consult with either the Grand Kid Chief Tessite Tsukabishi or the Vice Kid Chief Hachigen Ushta. Yes. The next 3 months were the most comfortable months Aelin had felt since becoming a Shinigami. With the Captain Commander's special permission, Aelin didn't even need to take on any missions. Every night, he produced some copies of those Zanpakutos he replicated, then absorbed those Zanpakutos' master's experiences. During the day, he would report to the Demon Arts Institute and flip through demon arts incantations and casting techniques. Aelin's Ryotsu grew every day. But his control over Ryotsu was also improving, so he kept maintaining his Ryotsu at the same level. Thus, no one noticed any changes with Aelin. One day, when Aelin left the Demon Arts Institute, he saw Jinrei Kukaki standing outside the doors of the Demon Arts Institute. Captain Kukaki. Night in Soul Society, the round moon hanging in the sky. Aelin crossed his hands behind the back of his head, a toothpick dangling from his mouth as he slowly strolled towards 2nd Division. The reason Aelin was out so late today was because on his way back, he chatted with Jinrei Kukaki for a very long time. The contents were nothing unexpected for Aelin, revolving around the Kukaki clan and 6th Division. Currently, Jinrei Kukaki was already advanced in years. His son Shun Kukaki had met misfortune, while his eldest grandson Byakuya Kukaki was still young. The only way for the Kuchikis to continue holding power and avoid becoming targeted by the nobles coveting them in the shadows was to bring in a powerful son-in-law through Jinrei's daughter, Haruko Kukaki. The previously promising Kage-eyed by Jinrei had become a traitor and was slain by Aelin. Fortunately, Haruko Kukaki was somewhat close with Aelin. In fact, the previous time Jinrei held a regimental funeral for his son Shun Kukaki, Aelin kept Haruko company in receiving guests. Jinrei even thought Aelin had already agreed to marry into the Kukaki clan. But unexpectedly, Aelin didn't come to visit his father-in-law at all for 3 whole months. Perplexed, Jinrei asked his daughter Haruko, only to find out that the last time Haruko invited Aelin, it was only as a friend rather than a Kukaki son-in-law. Therefore, when Jinrei found out Aelin was at the Demon Arts Institute, he went directly there to wait at the entrance. Marrying into the Kukaki clan Hui. Upon returning to his quarters, Aelin skipped his usual Zanpakut meditation training for once, a rare occurrence. 5 years ago, before Aelin successfully conceived his own Zanpakut, his greatest wish was just to live safely till old age. The stronger one's Ryotsu, the longer their lifespan. With Aelin's Ryotsu back then, his lifespan was around 200 years. But upon awakening to his true abilities, with Aelin's current captain class Ryotsu, his lifespan was around 500 years. Moreover, as Aelin's strength rose, his lifespan would only grow longer. So what were Aelin's dreams now? Tilting his head, Aelin gazed out his window at the full moon in the night sky. The various figures among the Shinigamis surfaced in Aelin's mind one by one. Sukaisen, Jin Ichimaru, Tsun Kaname. The Espada of Hueco Mundo, the Aaron Cars, Ichigo Kurosaki, Baragon, the Quincy Emperor and his stern Ritters. The Royal Guard. The Soul King. And Ichib Hisub. With an X-ranked ability like Unlimited Blade Works now, if Aelin didn't get to interact with these impressive individuals who left deep impressions on him, he would feel his transmigration had been wasted. In fact, Aelin was thinking even more. The limit of this world was the Soul King. So could he break through that limit? Slowly, Aelin stretched out a hand. Beneath the disparity in sight, the round moon in the sky was grasped in Aelin's palm. Captain Shion, sorry to find you this late. The next day, Aelin went to Yoryuaki. The two sat opposite each other in 2nd Division's captain's office. Oh? What's wrong, Aelin Vice Captain? Have you made up your mind? Although I've been in 2nd Division for a while, Lady Yoryuaki, I still want to take another step closer after all. Aelin didn't conceal anything from Yuryuaki at all, simply mentioning how Jinrei Kokaki came to find him. At most, Aelin was only the vice-captain of 2nd Division. By clearly stating his desire to take another step forward now, it meant he had ambitions on the captain's seat. Chapter 43, Becoming Captain. When Aelin expressed his desire to become a captain of the 13 court guard squads, Yuryuaki Shion understood. Not everyone was like her childhood friend, possessing great power yet not wanting to pursue higher status. Aelin had captain class Ryutsuo and had also achieved Bankai with his Zanpakuto. He was indeed qualified to become a captain of the 13 court guard squads. However, under normal circumstances, Aelin had no chance of becoming captain in the 2nd Division. This point was very clear to both Aelin and Yuryuaki Shion. Unless Aelin challenged Yuryuaki in front of over 200 Shinigami members and succeeded in defeating her. Now, the 6th Division Captain Jinrei Kokaki had extended an olive branch to Aelin, giving him a new choice. Well, let me congratulate you first here. I guess we'll become new colleagues before long. Thank you, Captain Yuryuaki. Aelin bowed to Yuryuaki in gratitude, then removed the armband representing the 2nd Division Vice-Captain from his left arm and gently placed it on the table before leaving the 2nd Division Captain's office. Stepping out of the 2nd Division gates, Aelin looked back at this place where he had stayed for over 30 years, then headed towards the Kokaki residence. Hey! A few steps out, a gust of wind blew up a few strands of Aelin's hair. A crisp female voice sounded behind Aelin. Aelin, are you really leaving the 2nd Division? Aelin stopped in his tracks. He wanted to turn back but eventually just gave a carefree smile with his back facing the girl, lightly waving a hand. Isn't that a given? Little Hornet, next time we meet, you should probably call me Captain Aelin. Aelin was very clear that he and Shaolin Fon were different. Shaolin Fon was the next head of the lower noble Fon clan and Yuryuaki Shion's successor for the 2nd Division captain position after Yuryuaki defected to the Seireitei. As a Shinigami who came from the Rukanga, it was impossible for Aelin to become captain of such a special division like the 2nd Division. If Aelin wanted to progress any further, leaving the 2nd Division was a must. The girl opened her mouth but didn't know what to say. She just watched Aelin's back disappear around the corner, lingering for a very long time. The next day, news came from the Kokaki house that the former 2nd Division Vice-Captain Aelin had gotten engaged to Jinrei Kokaki's eldest daughter, Haruko Kokaki, becoming the Kokaki house's son-in-law. At the same time, Aelin would take on the role of 6th Division Vice-Captain. A year later, Jinrei Kokaki officially retired. Aelin succeeded the 6th Division Captain position. The original 3rd seat Ginger Shirogane was promoted to 6th Division Vice-Captain. Ha! Yay! Beneath the cherry blossom tree in the Kokaki house's backyard, a handsome boy was diligently practicing his swordsmanship. Not far away, Jinrei Kokaki's eyes were narrowed in great satisfaction at the boy's performance. After retiring from the 6th Division Captain position, Jinrei Kokaki placed all his efforts into his grandson Byakuya Kokaki. As long as he was free, he would supervise Byakuya's training. And Byakuya's talent had exceeded Jinrei Kokaki's expectations. In just 5 short years, the 14-year-old Byakuya already possessed strength comparable to an ordinary Shinigami. Perhaps it was because Jinrei Kokaki focused too much on Byakuya Kokaki's combat prowess that Byakuya Kokaki's personality became quite unruly, very different from the noble demeanor expected of a Kokaki. This point was also giving Jinrei Kokaki a headache. Suddenly, Jinrei Kokaki raised his head. Byakuya, you have a guest. Guest. Byakuya Kokaki was still feeling doubtful when in the next moment, he felt someone grab his head and smash his face into theirs like a basketball. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. In just 3 short seconds, Byakuya Kokaki's expression rapidly transformed from confusion, dumbstruckness, anger, and finally to rage. You. Byakuya Kokaki's eyelid kept twitching as he mercilessly slashed the wooden sword in his hand at Yuryuaki Shion. But of course, the over a decade younger Byakuya had no chance at all of hitting Yuryuaki. Not only did Byakuya Kokaki's attack fail, his hair tie was even snatched away by Yuryuaki in passing. Ha 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 ha. Seeing Yuryuaki waving his red hair tie, Byakuya Kokaki was instantly infuriated. Stay right there and don't you dare move, you cat monster. Let me show you the extent of my shunpo now. I'll make you understand that my shunpo has long surpassed yours, Yuryuaki Shion. Oh. Hearing Byakuya Kokaki's words, Yoryuki couldn't help but laugh loudly. How cute! Little brother Byakuya, you can't even catch me yet still dare to boast your shunpo is above mine. Damn you! The blood vessels on Byakuya Kokaki's forehead bulged from anger as he brandished his wooden sword, seemingly wanting to hack Yoryuki into 10,000 pieces. Alright, Captain Yoryuki. Byakuya is still a child. Conscience won't prick you for bullying him like this. Just as Byakuya Kokaki was impotently infuriated, a voice sounded by everyone's ears. Next, Byakuya felt his body go light. In the next moment, he reappeared by his grandfather's side. A hand rested on Byakuya's shoulder. Raising his head to look, Byakuya saw a handsome youth. His long hair on the left side was bound by 2 moon hairpins to the back of his head. A deep red scarf was wrapped around his neck. Beneath the black shiakush was the white captain's haori representing his position as a captain of the 13 court guard squads. This person was none other than Byakuya's uncle through his aunt Haruko Kokaki's marriage and the current 6th Division captain, Ailen. Uncle. There, good boy Byakuya. That single word uncle made Ailen's eyes crinkle into a smile. He reached out to rub Byakuya's head. Little Byakuya was just too adorable. No wonder Yoryuki liked to come bully him so much. Especially when Ailen's mind would occasionally recall Byakuya's expressionless adult appearance. Rubbing little Byakuya's head and seeing that look of indignant humiliation was simply too amusing. Father-in-law. After nodding in greeting at Jinrei Kokaki, Ailen looked towards Yoryuki. The relationship between the Shien and Kokaki houses grew much closer after Ailen married into the Kokaki clan. In Jinrei Kokaki's eyes, the fact that Yoryuki Shien willingly let Ailen go showed the Shien house held no designs towards the Kuchikis. At least, not during Yoryuki Shien's time as clan head. Hence, Jinrei Kokaki also reciprocated Yoryuki's friendliness. Over the past few years, Yoryuki would regularly visit the Kokaki residence to tease Byakuya Kokaki. But she also incidentally taught Byakuya higher tiers of shunpo. Overall, the relationship between the current generation's Kokaki and Shien houses was at an unprecedented honeymoon stage. Lady Yoryuki, is there something you are looking for me today? As 6th Division captain, Ailen would normally be at the 6th Division barracks during the day. It was only because Yoryuki suddenly summoned him today that he hurried back from the 6th Division. Chapter 44, Secrets. Yoryuki nodded, yes, there is something I need Captain Ailen's assistance with. Even though Ailen had married into the Kokaki family and become their son-in-law, his displayed strength made all the other captains and even the members of the 6th Division recognize that he had the capability to be a captain. So everyone addressed Ailen as Captain Ailen instead of Captain Kokaki. This represented that the one they acknowledged as the captain of the 6th Division was Ailen the person, not his Kokaki family status. This was completely different from Ailen's memory of Keiga Kokaki's situation. Ailen remembered that in his memories, the reason Keiga Kokaki eventually rebelled was because before joining the 6th Division, he had not displayed powerful strength in front of the division members, leaving them with the impression of him being more of a Kokaki family son-in-law. So later when he gradually revealed his strength and made more contributions, eventually getting promoted to vice captain, everyone had already gotten used to his identity as the Kokaki family son-in-law. And this suppressed Keiga's pride. When he was framed by nobles who secretly coveted the Kokaki family, Keiga finally erupted. He directly broke out of prison to kill the nobles who framed him. In the end, his personality changed greatly as he slaughtered large numbers of Shinigamis, falling to become a traitor of Soul Society. He was eventually sealed away by Jinrei Kokaki and Captain Commander Genrisai Shigakuni Yamamoto. This mission is a bit troublesome, so I would like to ask Captain Ailen to work together to complete it. Seeing Yoryuki and Ailen start discussing work matters, Jinrei Kokaki pulled Byakuya Kokaki away to not disturb their discussion. Oh. Ailen raised an eyebrow in interest. Just what kind of mission was it that even made Yoryuki feel it was troublesome? Lady Yoryuki, please tell me first what kind of mission is it? Yes, I'll explain it to you first then, Yoryuki nodded, crossing her arms as she leaned against the cherry blossom tree. Over 900 years ago, aside from Soul Society, there was another force in this world that killed hollows from Hueco Mundo entering the living world to hunt humans, protecting mankind. That force was called the Empire of Light. The warriors of the Empire of Light were called Quincy's. Due to differences in ideology, over 900 years ago, the first generation 13 court guard squads led by Captain Commander Yamamoto waged a great battle against the Empire of Light's Quincy's, eventually successfully exterminating them. Aelin nodded. He still knew this history. In fact, he possibly knew even more than what Yuryuaki knew. He even knew that before the great battle against the 13 court guard squads, the Quincy Emperor Wywak of the Empire of Light Swandenreich had negotiated with Ichib Hisub, the commander of the royal guard protecting the Soul King Palace. In the end, Ichib used the Soul King's right hand to seal Wywak's specialized ability. Over the close to a millennium since, Soul Society has been searching for Quincy remnants, wanting to completely purge the Quincy bloodline. Not long ago, the intelligence unit of the 8th Division collected the hideout location of some remaining Quincy's in the living world. Captain Commander Yamamoto personally ordered for the 2nd Division and 13th Division to go to the living world together and exterminate these Quincy remnants. Wait. Hearing Yuryuaki speak to this point, Aelin couldn't help but raise a hand to interrupt her. Lady Yuryuaki, are these Quincy remnants really that powerful? You and Captain Yucatake have to personally take action yet still feel it's troublesome. Aelin wasn't certain just how powerful the current Yuryuaki was. But she definitely wasn't as strong as 200 years later after developing techniques like Shunk and Beast transformation. But Jaishur Yucatake, that old geezer Yamamoto's esteemed disciple, the right hand of the Soul King, was currently at his peak state. Among the current captains of the 13 court guard squads, his strength could rank in the top 5. Aside from Captain Commander Yamamoto, Shunsui Kirikou, Syaken Peiki, and Retsu Anohana, the other captains truly weren't much compared to Jaishur Yucatake. Even 12th Division Captain Kiryo Hikifune before her later promotion to the Royal Guard for her spirit body fusion technique shouldn't be Jaishur Yucatake's match. Of course, because he sacrificed one of his lungs, Jaishur Yucatake would occasionally suffer great drops in strength from his illness, but even with greatly reduced strength, Jaishur Yucatake was still above most other captains. From what Aelin knew, the truly powerful Quincy's of the Empire of Light were all dragged by Wywaka's other half, the Soul King's left arm, into the shadows of Soul Society after their defeat by the 13 court guard squads to hide away. The Empire of Light had also become the Unseen Empire from that day forth, also called the Hidden Empire. Questioned by Aelin like that, Yuryuaki uncharacteristically fell silent. As the family head of one of the 4 great noble families, no, as the family head of the Cheyenne family among the 4 great noble families, Yuryuaki knew exactly how her great noble status came about. It was betrayal. In the extremely distant past, there was originally only a single world, the living world. At that time, the living world was filled with meaningless life and death. There was no progress nor regression. Even becoming a hollow was part of the circulation process of souls. However, as the hollows transformed from the conversion of souls started devouring human souls, the souls that could reincarnate in this world became fewer and fewer. One day in the future, all the living world souls would be completely devoured by a massive hollow, becoming an enormous hollow itself, plunging the world into stagnation. At this time, the world gave birth to the Soul King. Born of the world itself, the Soul King possessed the Almighty, the power over all creation. The Soul King converted his Almighty into the power of destruction, using it to destroy the hollows, lifting the crisis from the world as souls started reincarnating once more. But while the world's crisis was resolved, those who witnessed the Soul King's power were unsatisfied with such a world. Thus, the heads of the 5 great noble families, aside from the Shiba family, attempted to persuade the Soul King to create separate worlds of life and death, the living world, Hueco Mundo, and Soul Society. But in the midst of communicating with the Soul King, the Tsunoya Shiro clan's head joined hands with the other 3 great families to attack the Soul King, sealing him away in a crystal prison. It seemed like through his powers, the Soul King saw the future and chose not to resist the betrayal, sacrificing himself to the schemes of the 3 great families' heads as they stole his powers to divide the chaotic world into the 3 realms. Even so, despite the Soul King giving up resistance, aside from the Shiba family, the other 3 families didn't feel assured. Fearing that one day the Soul King would want revenge, under a silent agreement among the 3 families, the Tsunoya Shiro clan spent countless years carving out the Soul King's heart, cutting off his legs, severing both arms, slicing open his organs before taking them out from his body, stripping away his powers before casting him down to the mortal world. Chapter 45, Yuryuaki's Plan. The Shiba clan had always opposed this. But with the Shiba clan's power, they were simply unable to stop the actions of the other 4 clans. Afterwards, the Shiba clan insisted on the ideology that we should reveal the sins we have committed and let the people of this world judge us, yet they were covertly targeted by the alliance of the other 3 clans and more nobles, gradually declining into destitution. When Yoryuki Shion first learned of this secret, if not for Kisuk Urahara's consoling and enlightening, she would not have known how to handle herself. To think her noble status that she believed was so esteemed was actually the greatest betrayal in this world. It was from that time that Yoryuki Shion became the noble among all nobles who was the least noble-like. The 5 great noble families who established Seoul society were the greatest traitors. Then what exactly were these Quincy's who were being surrounded and exterminated by Seoul society? Yoryuki Shion did not understand. If not for the direct order of the captain commander, Yoryuki Shion wouldn't even want to carry out this mission against the Quincy's. But even so, Yoryuki Shion felt very troubled. If it was only her alone, then after seeing the Quincy's, she could decide whether or not to carry out her orders. But accompanying her this time was the old man Yamamoto's disciple, Jaishur Yukitake. Yoryuki Shion didn't dare make any sly maneuvers right under Jaishur Yukitake's nose. Normally speaking, even if she personally defected from Seoul society, it wouldn't matter to the Shion clan. However, for an issue relating to Seoul society's own position, even if Captain Commander Yamamoto spared the Shion clan, the other nobles might target the Shion clan like they did the Shiba clan, causing the Shions to decline to the same state as the Shibas. The 5 great noble families worked together to ambush the Seoul King, stealing the Seoul King's power to split open the 3 realms, occupying Seoul society and establishing the Siraidai. But beneath them were the 12 upper nobles and 39 lower nobles forming the Noble Alliance, jointly holding the highest authority of the Siraidai. The Shiba clan had already declined while the Tsunoya Shiro clan was exterminated over a decade ago. The rottenness amongst nobles was far darker than Yoryuki Shion could imagine. But she knew the Shion clan alone could not withstand them. So Yoryuki Shion thought of the Kukaki clan. If Ailin accompanied her, Yoryuki would have ample room to maneuver. Hence, Yoryuki Shion did not conceal her thoughts from Ailin at all. Captain Ailin, the mission this time is to surround and exterminate the remnants of Quincy's discovered in the living world. However, before exterminating them, I want to secretly investigate just what kind of existences Quincy's are without Captain Yukitake finding out. When the time comes, I'll need you to cover for me so Captain Yukitake doesn't learn of my whereabouts. What do you think? Just like that. Just like that. Ailin nodded. All right, Captain Yoryuki. Let me first explain things to my wife and father-in-law before setting out with you. Okay, I'll wait for you at the 2nd Division. Cough 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 cough. After splitting up with Yoryuki, Ailin walked towards his own quarters. When he was still some distance from his room, he heard a few coughs. Instantly stepping over, Ailin pulled open his room's door to see Haruko Kukaki currently coughing while preparing a lunchbox. Haruko, I've said it so many times already. Your body isn't well, just focus on resting in bed. Seeing this, Ailin hurried forward to take the things in Haruko Kukaki's hands, supporting her to sit in a chair. But Ailin, if I don't get up to do some things for you, wouldn't that make me seem like a useless wife? After sitting down, Haruko Kukaki took a few deep breaths to catch her breath, smiling as she spoke to Ailin. Haruko Kukaki's health had always been rather good. But starting 3 years ago, her health had deteriorated at a visible rate. Even the 4th Division captain, Retsuo Anohana, was helpless about this situation. However, she gave Ailin a suggestion. If Ailin wanted Haruko Kukaki to live longer, then the time Ailin spent together with her would have to be reduced, even to the point of never seeing each other again. Up till now, Ailin still clearly remembered Retsuo Anohana's momentary bone-chilling gaze when she said those words to him. And due to those words from Captain Anohana, Ailin and Jinrei Kukaki realized what Haruko's condition truly represented. Most Shinagamis of Seoul society resided in Siraidai. They rarely wandered out to the Rukanga. This was because ordinary spirits didn't possess Ryuryoku. If they frequently lingered by the side of those with powerful Ryuryoku, their souls would be constantly oppressed by that powerful Ryuryoku, ultimately leading to their souls gradually weakening until death. Haruko Kukaki was Jinrei Kukaki's daughter, naturally possessing Ryuryoku. It was just that her talent wasn't good while she also lacked interest in becoming a Shinigami, hence she did not cultivate. But with Haruko's personal Ryuryoku, even long-term proximity to captain-class figures shouldn't bring any issues. The only reason that could lead to Haruko weakening to her current state was long-term coexistence with someone whose Ryuryoku surpassed the captain level, causing tremendous pressure to her soul that reacted onto her body, leading to her physical condition continuously deteriorating. Such circumstances were completely unexpected by both Ailin and Jinrei Kukaki. After fully producing all those copied Zanpakuts, Aelin's Ryuryoku tier had broken through, reaching the extent of a century captain. Aelin hadn't expected that even after restraining his Ryuryoku to the limit, his own Ryuryoku would still bring tremendous pressure to Haruko's soul. Jinrei Kokaki hadn't expected Aelin's strength to actually reach such an extent. A century captain wasn't referring to someone who held the captain seat for 100 years before being called a century captain. Just like over 200 years later, when Shunsui Kiraku said to Coyote Stark during their fight that Chuer Hitsuguya was a genius captain and that Hitsuguya might surpass him in 100 years' time, it was acknowledging that Chuer currently possessed the strength of a century captain. The most intuitive display of a normal captain and century captain's strength disparity was that a century captain's Shikai already possessed power comparable to a normal captain's Bankai. In other words, if you could defeat a captain-class expert who released Bankai using just your Shikai, it signified you had attained the strength of a century captain. Not even at Jinrei Kokaki's peak had he reached that realm. Thus, after learning of Captain Anohana's suggestion to Aelin, Jinrei Kokaki hadn't known what attitude he should hold towards Aelin. On one hand, Aelin found a true monster genius for the Kokaki clan. If nothing unexpected happened, the Kokaki clan would have no worries for at least a millennium. Because a century captain's lifespan had reached 1,000 years, double that of the 500 years captains possessed. Chapter 46, Heading to the Living World. On the other hand, Jinrei Kokaki was also grieving. Because the son-in-law he found for his daughter was more powerful than he had anticipated, causing his daughter's life to be nearing its end. After losing his son, Jinrei Kokaki would once again experience the pain of losing his daughter. Once a soul starts weakening, it becomes irreversible like a leaking barrel. Even if Aelin stayed far away from Haruko Kokaki from now on, she would still die in another 10 or so years. So between a few years and over 10 years, Haruko Kokaki chose the former. More importantly, during these few years while her body could still move, Haruko Kokaki wanted to leave behind an offspring for Aelin. Unfortunately, she had been unable to accomplish that desire so far. Who said our Haruko is useless? Aelin laughed as he lightly flicked Haruko Kokaki's nose. You know how boring a Shinigami's work is, Haruko. Waking up every morning to see you puts me in a good mood for the day. Coming back to see you also alleviates my exhaustion from the day. Amidst Aelin's gentle whispers, a blissful smile emerged on Haruko Kokaki's face. To be acquainted with Aelin, to understand him, to be with him, it really was too wonderful. After calming Haruko Kokaki to sleep, Aelin went to find Jinrei Kokaki. Father-in-law. You saw Haruko? Aelin nodded, a trace of self-reproach flashing through his eyes. I saw her. Haruko's condition is worse than I had anticipated. If only he had discovered Haruko's problems earlier. Ever since Captain Anohana said those words of suggestion, Aelin had never continued forging any more weapons. Yet Haruko Kokaki's condition still continued worsening. Sigh. Jinrei Kokaki let out a sigh. That was his daughter. When it came to grief, he wouldn't feel any less than Aelin. Since you didn't stay by Haruko's side and came here to find me instead, is there something? After a period of silence, Jinrei Kokaki collected himself before asking Aelin. Captain Yoryuki wants me to assist her in carrying out a mission in the living world. I'm thinking of using this chance for Haruko to recuperate. So I agreed. These next few days, whether it's Haruko or the 6th Division matters, I'll have to trouble father-in-law to keep watch. I understand. After bowing to Jinrei Kokaki, Aelin exited the room. Giving one last look towards Haruko Kokaki's direction, he flash-stepped away from the Kokaki residence. Sorry for making you wait so long, Captain Yoryuki, Captain Yukatake. When Aelin hurried to the training grounds of the 2nd Division, the Shinigamis of both the 2nd and 13th Divisions had long been waiting here. Ha ha ha, we didn't wait for long either. Since Captain Aelin is here, let's set out now. Although both were captains, because each division had their own responsibilities, under normal situations, captains wouldn't interact much with one another unless they had an exceptionally close private relationship. Aelin and Jaishur Yukatake weren't very familiar with each other, so after giving Aelin a smiling nod in greeting, Jaishur Yukatake immediately ordered the Shinigamis under him to prepare the Senkaimon. Yes, Captain Yukatake. The two Shinigamis pressed their hands to the ground, channeling their Ryuryoku into the earth. Instantly, a tightly shut wooden gate emerged between the two, and when the gate fully condensed, it split open to both sides, revealing a passageway emitting white radiance. This was the spatial passageway to the living world from Soul Society, the Senkaimon. On the surface, the Senkaimon passages from Soul Society to the living world were controlled by the SRDI, Shinigami Research and Development Institute, of the 12th Division. All Shinigamis who wanted to go to the living world needed permission from the Captain Commander, and only then would SRDI members open the Senkaimon for them. Additionally, the Riot Soul Limiter seal would be placed on all who held Vice Captain or higher positions, preventing the powerful Riot Soul pressures of Vice Captain level Shinigamis and above from oppressing living world human souls. Of course, secretly, many nobles also possessed passages from Soul Society to the living world through personal Senkaimon. And by entering the living world through the Senkaimon they controlled, there wouldn't be any limiter seals placed on them. Unlike the souls of Soul Society who only had souls left without physical bodies, the people of the living world still had flesh bodies protecting their souls. Under long-term oppression by powerful Ryotsu, some humans would give birth to Ryuryoku. For the souls of Soul Society, possessing Ryuryoku was a good thing since it was the most basic requirement for becoming a Shinigami. But for living world humans, having Ryuryoku was instead their nightmare. Possessing Ryuryoku allowed them to see spirits invisible to ordinary people, greatly disturbing their lives. At the same time, hollows from Hueco Mundo that entered the living world loved feasting on souls with Ryuryoku the most. Although Shinigamis were also stationed around the living world, they couldn't possibly come save someone every time. Could they protect a person for their entire life? Being able to see terror yet lacking the power to resist was undoubtedly the most tragic thing. Since they were going to exterminate Quincy remnants of the Empire of Light this time, Aelin and the others hadn't been restricted by Riot Soul Limiter seals. Led by Captain Yukatake, Yuryuki and Aelin followed after him successively. The rest of the Shinigamis also followed closely as they entered the Senkaimon. So this is the living world. Without any outside interference, the stability of Soul Society's Senkaimon was still rather dependable. At the very least, the group hadn't encountered any lost way incidents and the like while traversing through space. After stepping out of the Senkaimon passage, Aelin felt the living world's Reishi density was inferior to Soul Society's by several levels. That also meant consuming more personal Ryuryoku and requiring longer recovery times to display the same level of power in the living world compared to in Soul Society. The place Aelin's group appeared at was a deep mountain forest completely absent of human activity even for 10 square kilometers. On the other side after coming out, Yuryuki winked at Aelin. Aelin subtly nodded back before walking towards Captain Yukatake. Captain Yukatake, this is my first time in the living world. Is there anything we need to pay attention to? After Aelin attracted Captain Yukatake's attention away, Yuryuki Shion and Kisuke Urahara had already disappeared at some unknown point. Only Shaolin Fon with the Vice Captain armband on her right arm remained as she continuously issued orders for the 2nd Division Shinigamis to advance along the trail left behind by the intelligence unit. Through communicating with Captain Yukatake, Aelin also learned about some situations of the current living world. Among the 13 divisions protecting Siritii, the 13th Division was the purification force mainly responsible for guiding lingering souls in the living world to Soul Society for reincarnation while also slaying hollows from Hueco Mundo that entered the living world to devour souls. In terms of understanding the living world, no division surpassed the 13th. The current age's living world was filled with wars everywhere, forcing people to live in peril day after day. This gave birth to many hollows harboring intense malice. Chapter 47, Village. It was also because the 13th Division's Shinigamis stationed around the living world suffered excessive casualties that hollows ran rampant all over in many places. And it was because of so many hollows that the Quincy remnants hiding in the living world could no longer remain concealed as they started taking action to destroy hollows. When Shinigamis killed hollows, their main goal was purifying the hollows' souls. The souls of hollows slain by Shinigamis could still reincarnate in the living world's cycle of rebirth. But the Quincy's power of destruction came from the Soul King's original power of destruction used to annihilate ancient hollows. It could completely destroy a hollow's soul, dissolving it entirely in the world. The Shinigamis of Soul Society might slack off about other matters, but when it concerned the balance of the world's existence they stared at it unwaveringly. The number of souls in the Shinigami world was fixed. At the same time, maintaining the souls of Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, and the living world in an extremely subtle equilibrium was necessary for the stability of all three realms. Most human souls in the living world would enter Soul Society upon death while a minority degenerated into hollows entering Hueco Mundo. The Shinigamis of Soul Society played the role of protecting this stability of the worlds amidst this cycle. When the number of hollows in Hueco Mundo exceeded the balanced range, the Shinigamis would order the hollow hunting forces stationed in Hueco Mundo to slaughter hollows, sending some hollow souls to reincarnate and maintain the three worlds' stability. If the hollow quantities in Hueco Mundo suddenly dropped drastically, the Shinagamis would also utilize certain methods to make a portion of Soul Society's souls disappear. Of course, such secrets were things Alan knew of from the memories of his previous life on the Blue Planet. Even in Siridae currently, the ones who could truly know of these secrets were probably limited to the 5 great noble families, Captain Commander Yamamoto, Shunsui Kirikou, Jaishur Yucatake, and several others. The Quincy's hidden in the living world killing hollows meant those hollow souls were directly destroyed without reincarnation or entering Soul Society, decreasing the total number of souls in the entire world. Such abnormality was quickly discovered by Soul Society as they locked onto the Quincy remnants of the Empire of Light. The troops Yoryuki brought along this time were the Onmitsukid of the 2nd Division. Under Shaolin Fon's lead, they quickly discovered the traces left behind by the intelligence unit, confirming the location of the Empire of Light's Quincy remnants. After finding the target, Alan and Captain Yucatake also ceased conversing as they led the Shinagamis of the 13th Division to follow. Beyond Alan's expectations, Captain Yucatake hadn't displayed any doubts towards Yoryuki and Kisuk's departure. Evidently, Captain Yucatake had already known of Yoryuki leaving previously. Sigh, I really am still too young. Walking behind Shaolin Fon, Alan shook his head. He had probably been used as a scapegoat by Yoryuki and Captain Yucatake this time. If nothing went wrong on Yoryuki's side then things would be fine, but if something did happen, Captain Yucatake also had an excuse over here. Yup, the excuse was that Alan had pestered him with some unimportant questions occupying his attention. Alan hoped he wouldn't get set up this time. Shinagamis possessed extraordinary power, but perhaps to buy time for Yoryuki and Kisuk, Shaolin Fon led the troops of the Onmitsukid to search for the intelligence unit's traces at an efficiency dozens of times slower compared to when Alan was still part of them. Yet for a mere 20 kilometers distance, Shaolin Fon actually had the Onmitsukid circle around for 2 whole days before reaching their destination. Oh? You guys sure took a long time getting here, Captain Yucatake, Captain Alan. At the end of the path, Yoryuki and Kisuk Urahara seemed to have already been waiting for some time. We've already fully investigated. The 8th Division's intel was correct. There indeed are Quincy's existing here. When Alan and Captain Yucatake walked over, peering forward from this muddy small road was over 30 tattered thatched huts. Around the straw huts were farmlands. Most men and young women were laboring in the fields. There were also some frolicking children in the village. Their attire was similar to the wandering souls of Soul Society's Rukanga. Clearly, this era was still considered an ancient age to Alan. Seeing these people no different from ordinary humans, Alan's brows slightly creased. Captain Yucatake, do we have to completely massacre all these people? Alan's senses told him there were over 230 or so people just within this village. Among them were over 30 children under 10 years old and over 20 elderly above 60. Ever since becoming a Shinigami, Alan had never once swung his blade at children before. He didn't wish for any exceptions today either. No, our goal is to exterminate the Empire of Light's Quincy warriors. Ordinary people are not within our purge range. As if knowing what Alan wanted to ask, Captain Yucatake directly clarified the objective of this mission. Is that so? How do we confirm which of these people are Quincy's then? Quincy's were adepts at spirit particle manipulation. For powerful Quincy's, hiding one's Ryutsu was basic ability. Additionally, Quincy's were most proficient in gathering spirit particles to form arrow projectiles for attacking enemies. Even with lower Ryutsu tiers, they could still possess formidable might. If they didn't voluntarily flare up Ryutsu, it would be impossible for Shinagamis to distinguish Quincy's from ordinary people. That's simple. Before Captain Yucatake could reply to Alan, Kisuk Urahara standing by Yoryuki's side already spoke up, drawing everyone's attention onto him. They only saw Kisuk Urahara take out a small glass bottle from his clothes. Inside the bottle was half a bottle of liquid that sloshed about as Kisuk swung his wrist. This item here is something I coincidentally discovered. It can emit a scent similar to human souls after making contact with air. After speaking, Kisuk Urahara flicked open the bottle's stopper before tossing the glass bottle down towards the village below. The glass bottle tumbled through the air, spilling white liquid from its mouth that swiftly volatilized in the air. Just this one small bottle of liquid could emit a scent comparable to 1,000 human souls after evaporating. I presume the gathering of so many soul scents here will soon attract hollows over from Hueco Mundo. By then, the people attacking those hollows will be our extermination targets this time. Aelin noticed Yuryuaki didn't react the slightest when Kisuk said the word exterminate. Something he didn't know about had probably occurred here, causing Yuryuaki to gain her own determination. To avoid rousing the attention of the Quincy's in the village, Aelin's group retreated into the woods, only observing the village's circumstances from afar. They didn't have to wait long at all. Not even 10 minutes after Kisuk Urahara's medicine dissipated, roars of hollows sounded by everyone's ears. In the village's skies, only those possessing Ryuryoku could see pitch-black cracks splitting open one by one. Chapter 48, Jinrei Keijaku, Silver Soul Sparrow Bow. One after another, those terrifying monsters emerged from the spatial cracks, falling onto the roads, fields, and village. This is bad, a horde of hollows are attacking. When they heard the hollows' roars, some people working in the fields raised their heads to look at the sky as their expressions drastically changed. Everyone flee quickly, disaster comes. Upon discovering the hollows, some villagers immediately started organizing an orderly evacuation. The escape routes they led the villagers towards intentionally avoided the hollows that had landed on the ground. Even if those hollows wanted to feast, they would need some time. Next, wave after wave of azure spirit arrow projectiles shot out from all over the village and fields, attacking the hollows descending upon the village. Whoosh! Whoosh! The hollows dropping out from the spatial cracks of Hueco Mundo were slain under these spirit arrows. But perhaps the efficacy of Kisuk Urahara's bottled liquid was too good. The emerging number of hollows from Hueco Mundo was very substantial. Aside from the most common small fry hollows, there were also several medium-sized hollows. The great majority of small fry hollows would dissipate into black smoke after getting pierced through by 1 or 2 spirit arrows. The mask of small hollows had to be struck for them to die unless 7 to 8 spirit arrows struck their bodies. Medium-sized hollows were existences comparable to elite Shinagamis. Powerful ones could even match seated officers. Their speed was very fast. Ordinary Quincy arrows simply couldn't hit them. They dashed through the fields swiftly, stomping out one giant crater after another as they sped towards crowded areas. These Quincy's are so weak. In the forest, Aelin watched the battle up ahead and couldn't help shaking his head after comparing them to the Quincy's in his memories. The quantity of hollows attracted over by Kisuk Urahara's liquid bait was about the same number Ishida Yuri wanted to compete against Ichigo Kurosaki with. The strength levels were also quite similar. But the performance of this group still wasn't as good as Ishida Yuri alone back then. Even when the fingers on Ishida's hand split open from repeatedly drawing his bow, those many hollows had failed to pose true threat to him. Although there were many Quincy's here, not a single one seemed on par with Ishida Yuri's initial appearance. In fact, many people's Quincy bows trembled unstably as if they could collapse at any moment. It seemed like Seoul Society's war against the Empire of Light over 900 years ago had truly annihilated all of the Quincy's elites. Those left remaining in the living world were merely some inferior Quincy's. Their inheritance had nearly been severed over the past millennium. Seeing a few medium-sized hollows evade countless arrows as they charged towards crowded areas, Aelin placed his hand on Zanpakute's hilt by his waist. But in the next moment, a hand pressed down on the back of Aelin's, stopping his sword-drawing action. "Captain Aelin, please don't recklessly expose our location before we start taking action." Staring at Captain Yukate's serious gaze, Aelin silently pondered for a few seconds before pulling Yukate's hand off and laughing, "Don't worry, Captain Yukate. If I'm going to make a move, I definitely won't let the Quincy's know about it." Aelin didn't know how to evaluate Captain Yukate. He was a kind and gentle man cherishing harmony and equality, treating all Shinagamis and humans impartially. Even to other division members, he displayed the same tenderness. Such day-to-day conduct made Captain Yukate seem like the template of a nice old man. However, he treasured a man's dignity even more importantly than his own life. This point could be seen from how he stopped Rukia from going to rescue Kaien. Additionally, the plan of using proxy badges to monitor deputy Shinagamis was also a motion proposed and implemented by Captain Yukate. That motion signified all deputy Shinagamis making rebellious actions against Seoul Society would be unconditionally exterminated. Looking at the only 2 existing deputy Shinagamis, what kinds of people were they? Jinjei Keigo and Kurosaki Ichigo both simultaneously possessed the powers of Shinagamis, Hollows, and Fullbringers. Both of them held the potential to become Soul Kings. Captain Yukate had discovered this through his Shind, God's Pendulum, ability and hence listed Jinjei and Ichigo as Soul King candidates. If anything unexpected happened to the Soul King causing the collapse of the 3 realms, Jinjei and Ichigo would then undergo a series of procedures to become new Soul Kings for stabilizing the worlds. From this angle, Captain Yucatake was also an unyielding figure like the later Kisuk Urahara who could sacrifice everything for Soul Society's sake. For such individuals, Alan believed he could be acquainted with them but not bare his heart to them. Because Alan also didn't know if there might come a day in the future where he could also be seen by them as a Soul King candidate. In any case, Alan neither wished to become an all-loving Soul King sacrificing his own self without resisting for the world's sake like the noble current one, nor did he desire becoming a linchpin forcibly processed to stabilize the three realms like Wywak. After being blocked for a moment by Captain Yucatake, the fastest medium-sized hollow charging towards the front crowd of people was almost catching up. Just as Alan was about to take action. Whoosh! A fierce arrow shot past, directly impaling that medium-sized hollow through. In the next moment, equally sharp arrows swiftly slaughtered the few other medium-sized hollows. Quick, gather close around me as the center. An old white-bearded man wielding a bow shaped like a spider web suddenly flashed to the rooftop of the village's tallest building and shouted loudly. Upon seeing the bow in the old man's hand, Alan released his own hand gripping Zanpakute's hilt. He recognized that particular form of bow the old man held. That was the advanced form a Quincy's bow could transform into when their strength reached a certain level. Jinrei Keijaku, Silver Soul Sparrow Bow. In Alan's previous life memories, Ishida Yuri's bow had also transformed into such a shape when he entered Hueco Mundo to rescue a new Orium. At that time, Ishida Yuri's strength could also be considered at the vice-captain tier or higher. Since this old Quincy also wielded the same bow, his strength definitely wasn't inferior to Ishida of that time. With this elder present, even if there were several times more hollows, they couldn't pose any real threat to this village. This Quincy elder seemed to possess immense prestige within the village. Hearing his words, all villagers both inside and outside instantly swarmed over to his direction without caring if there were still hollows on their way. After everyone gathered closer, this powerful Quincy drew his bowstring taut. Vast spirit particles gathered in his hand, transforming into an azure spirit arrow. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Innumerable spirit arrows fired out violently from the elder's Jinrei Keijaku like raging rain. Following the elder's movements, the arrow rain swept away all the hollows ahead. Jinrei Keijaku was a bow only advanced Quincy's could wield. It could fire over 1,000 arrows per second. Chapter 49, Yucatake's Thoughts. Phew! Seeing these hollows annihilated by the arrow rain, Yuryuaki Shion let out a long sigh. As expected, in Yuryuaki's perception, all the hollows killed by the Quincy's dissipated into black smoke. This meant that those hollows and the souls devoured by those hollows had been completely annihilated, vanishing from this world. Whereas the hollows slain by Shinagamis would dissipate into white or blue spirit particles. The souls of hollows, along with the souls swallowed by them, would begin reincarnating in the mortal world again as the spirit particles dispersed. Although her own existence was a rebellion, to the world, the existence of Quincy's was even more dangerous. If the Quincy's were allowed to annihilate hollows like this, the total number of souls in the world would gradually decrease until destruction. From the perspective of the world, the Quincy's did deserve death. After figuring this out, Yuryuaki no longer had any burdens regarding this mission. Wywak must have known all of this before he came up with the idea of killing the Soul King, absorbing the Soul King's power to recreate the world. Perhaps in the world he wanted to recreate, the Quincy power of destruction represented the means to send hollow souls into reincarnation, while the Shinigami power of death reaped and destroyed souls. After the Quincy elder took action, the hollows lured over by Kisuk Urahara's bait were completely annihilated in less than 5 seconds. Such a swift death also made the hollows behind the Gargantia hesitate. In the end, after that Quincy elder shot an arrow rain at the crack in the sky, the Garganta swiftly closed up. Lord Kurosaki! Lord Kurosaki! Seeing all the hollows killed, the villagers with spiritual power started loudly cheering. Lord Kurosaki, whose real name was Takia Kurosaki, was a pure-blood Quincy. At the same time, he was also the elder who had taught everyone cultivation. Within this village, Takia Kurosaki's prestige was comparable to Captain Commander Yamamoto's in Soul Society. However, unlike everyone else's cheers, although he had slain the attacking hollow horde, Takia Kurosaki was still warily surveying his surroundings. Usually, even if hollows attacked, there would only be 1 or 2 at most. For hundreds of hollows to attack simultaneously this time, it was utterly impossible for it to be a coincidence. As a pure-blood Quincy, Takia Kurosaki knew from reading the texts recording Quincy history that Quincy's could create bait to attract hollows through certain methods. The commotion those baits could cause were very similar to what happened today. Perhaps this was a junior who had seen that part of the records and secretly created the bait. In any case, so many hollows had come here today that they could no longer stay. Shutta Katagiri, Junichi Ishida, immediately organize people to pack up belongings. We must leave this place right now. Yes, Lord Kurosaki. The two middle-aged men exchanged a glance before starting to organize everyone to return home and pack up, preparing for a long migration. And without much complaint, the villagers also began orderly preparations one by one. Ever since His Majesty Waiwaka's disappearance, the Empire of Light was completely unable to withstand the Shinigami's assault, collapsing in just a few years. Afterwards, the Quincy's had started several hundred years of escape. Although their clansmen gradually withered under the Shinigami's pursuit, they also left behind precious experience at the same time. The Quincy's control over spirit particles was even more precise than the Shinigami's. As long as they didn't voluntarily flare up their Ryotsu to fight, ordinary Shinigami's wouldn't be able to distinguish them out. While Quincy's possessing spiritual power could see Shinigami's. Therefore, as long as they pretended to be ordinary people who couldn't see spirits before Shinigami's, or ordinary people with a bit of spiritual power who could see spirits, there wouldn't be any issues. In terms of fighting, as long as they didn't annihilate too many hollows within a short period, the Shinigami's also wouldn't be able to track the Quincy's down. However, their frequency of acting these past days had been too high. Coupled with today's battle, Takia Kurosaki knew that this place would soon be discovered by Shinigami's. If they didn't hurry up and leave now, he feared the Quincy bloodline would be severed by his own hands. Is everyone clear on all the targets? Not far away from the Quincy village in the woods, Jaishur Yukatake confirmed with all the present Shinigami's. Kisuke Urahara had lured those hollows to attack the village for the sake of discerning which people inside were Quincy's and which were ordinary villagers. None of the Shinigami's present were rookies. Although the earlier battle didn't even last 5 minutes, everyone who made a move had already been secretly marked down by them. Facing Captain Yukatake's question, no one spoke up to expose anyone else's targets. They only nodded in response. Remember, our only targets are the Quincy's. Do not implicate any ordinary people. After saying this line, Jaishur Yukatake's gaze slanted towards Aelin's direction. As expected, after he finished speaking, Aelin slightly nodded. Jaishur Yukatake had deliberately said those words for Aelin to hear. Captain Yukatake, Captain Yoryuki, looks to me the Quincy's in this village won't require me making a move. So I'll stand guard on this path. If any Quincy's try escaping my way, I'll handle them. You guys can take care of the other directions. Alright, we'll leave that direction to you then, Captain Aelin. Regarding Aelin taking the initiative to stand guard at one side, Jaishur Yukatake was more than happy to oblige. After all, his mission this time was to completely annihilate the Quincy remnants. Through his Shind, God's Pendulum, ability, he foresaw Soul Society suffering terrible losses from the Quincy's attack at some unknown point far into the future. For Soul Society's sake, he had to eradicate all Quincy's. At the very least, he needed to reduce the number of Quincy's Soul Society would encounter in the future to a quantity they could deal with. Exterminating all living world Quincy's was the first step in his attempt to change the future. What he said earlier about only killing exposed Quincy's was merely for Aelin to hear. When it came time to truly take action, aside from those Quincy's who stepped forward, the people who first discovered the Hollow's descent and led the villagers in evacuation must also die. Furthermore, aside from them, Captain Yukatake didn't wish to spare any villagers, whether women or children, who could see Shinigami's and possessed spiritual power. Now that Aelin had taken the initiative to stand guard at one side, it also conveniently facilitated Captain Yukatake's maneuvers. If not necessary, Yukatake was also unwilling to make an enemy of an upright captain like Aelin. Aelin was naturally oblivious to how many schemes Jaishur Yukatake had spun in his mind over the course of those few short breaths. But since he already obtained Captain Yukatake's permission, Aelin flash stepped over a few times, appearing on the village's only road connected to the outside world. Folding his arms, Aelin stood with his back facing the village. After Aelin's departure, Yukatake nodded at Yoryuki before ordering, "Everyone, begin. Kill." Chapter 50, Soul Dispersal Gloves. This is bad. Within the village, the moment Shinigami's charged out from the woods, without the concealment barrier protecting them, their Ryotsu were quickly sensed by the Quincy's within the village. How is this possible? We just killed those hollows, how did the Shinigami's get here so fast? Seeing the Shinigami's, Takia Kurosaki's expression grew solemn. Shinagamis are here. As the Shinagamis drew closer, more and more Quincy's discovered the traces of the Shinagamis. To the Quincy's, Shinagamis were mortal enemies that must kill or be killed upon encountering, the same as Hollows. In fact, the Quincy's hated the Shinagamis even more than the Hollows. This was the resentment left behind after hundreds of years of fighting between Quincy's and Shinagamis. In that moment, blue-colored spirit bows emerged on the left hands of the Quincy's as they unleashed attacks at the incoming Shinagamis. Unfortunately, how could the spirit arrows shot out by these Quincy's who struggled to even kill small Hollows pose any threat to the elite Shinagamis? Some directly used Shunpo to evade while others unsheathed their Zanpakuts to shatter the incoming spirit arrows. In but an instant, the Quincy's attacks were completely deflected. This isn't right. The Shinagamis attacking this time are too powerful. Seeing the Shinagamis easily dissolve their attacks, Takia Kurosaki knew things weren't looking good. Unless we had already been exposed. Our earlier actions merely informed the Shinagamis of our exact locations prematurely. After this thought flashed through his mind, Takia Kurosaki raised his Jinrei Keijaku once more as dense waves of arrow rain shot towards the incoming Shinagamis. Takia Kurosaki had pushed Jinrei Keijaku to its limits, firing out 1200 spirit arrows per second that nearly submerged over half the Shinagamis' skies. If these Shinagamis were struck by this move, they would suffer at least over 50% casualties. Unfortunately, Takia Kurosaki's torrent of light arrows didn't truly manage to injure even a single Shinagami. Because two figures instantly appeared before all the Shinagamis, directly facing the sky full of arrows. Captain of the 2nd Division Guardians of Siraidai, Yuryuki Shion, and Captain of the 13th Division, Jaishur Yukatake. Bakud number 81 Splitting Void. A translucent pale yellow light barrier instantly materialized before Yuryuki and Yukatake. Boom! 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 Countless arrows struck the barrier, erupting urgent blasts that caused dense exploding fog to appear before Splitting Void. Aside from making the fog of exploded spirit arrow remnants denser before Splitting Void, Takia Kurosaki's attack didn't injure the Shinagamis whatsoever. After all, as a high-tier defensive kid, the reputed Splitting Void could perfectly defend against destructive spells below number 90. Even if Yukatake had given up chanting, only able to display one-third of Splitting Void's true might, it could still block destructive spells around number 60. Although the arrows Takia Kurosaki fired moved at 1200 per second, each arrow only possessed power comparable to number 4 destructive spell Pale Lightning. They were completely unable to penetrate through Splitting Void's defense. Captains of the 13 Division's Guardians of Siraidai. Moreover, there's two of them. When Yuryuki Shion and Jaishur Yukatake's figures appeared before Takia Kurosaki, he knew that not only him, but many more Quincy's wouldn't make it out alive today. The captains of the 13 Division's Guardians of Siraidai stood at the pinnacle of Siraidai, boasting the greatest power. Every single one of them possessed might far surpassing ordinary imagination. Even with his confidence in himself, Takia Kurosaki didn't believe he could rival a captain of the 13 divisions. Let alone the fact there were two captains standing before him right now. Furthermore, after ceasing his assault, he discovered the Shinagamis behind Splitting Void were advancing along the flanks in an arc, clearly attempting to completely surround the village where Takia and the others were located. Evidently, they were planning to completely annihilate them. Shutta Katagiri, Junichi Ishida, I will obstruct these Shinagamis while you quickly lead everyone to escape. Lord Kurosaki. Stop dawdling and hurry escape. If you can't get away, remember to tell the children what things they can and can't see. Hearing Takia Kurosaki's words, Shutta Katagiri and Junichi Ishida's expressions drastically changed. Had they reached a dead end? Even Lord Kurosaki was starting to despair? Junichi Ishida lowered his head with a cold sneer. Had. Since when have our Quincy life and death been dependent on the kindness of Shinagamis? Takia Kurosaki frowned. Junichi. Don't worry, Lord Kurosaki. I'll convey it down. However, apologies, Lord Kurosaki. This time, I'd rather die in battle than live on clinging to hope from the Shinagamis. Upon finishing, Junichi Ishida placed his right hand on one of the spikes of the soul dispersal glove on his left hand and fiercely twisted. Snap! Boom! Soul dispersal gloves were the most powerful equipment the Quincy's had researched over the past few centuries. Usually, soul dispersal gloves would absorb ambient spirit particles from the air and store them within the glove. When a Quincy snapped off one of the spikes on their soul dispersal glove, the stored spirit particles would completely discharge, enhancing the Quincy's control over surrounding spirit particles and allowing them to simulate a portion of the Quincy final form Volstandig for a brief period. However, after using the Soul Dispersal Glove, the Quincy would suffer immense damage to their soul locks from overloading their spirit particle control, ultimately losing their powers. Right now, vast quantities of spirit particles swirling around Junichi Ishida as the spirit bow on his hand transformed from its spirit particle state into a physical white-colored bow arc sparrow. Junichi Ishida, who had utilized the Soul Dispersal Glove, now possessed might even surpassing Takia Kurosaki. Knocking an arrow, Junichi Ishida aimed at Yoryuki Shion in White Hayori and Jaishur Yukatake up ahead before releasing his shot. Kill. Everyone hurry escape. Although he had his back facing the village, with Alan's current abilities, he could still clearly hear the sounds of fighting from within the village. In the end, the Quincy's still declined. Even if Junichi Ishida, Shota Katagiri and even Takia Kurosaki had all activated Soul Dispersal Gloves to push their strengths to Captain Tier levels, it didn't change their fate one bit. Junichi Ishida, killed by Yoryuki Shion. Shota Katagiri, killed by Kisuke Urahara. Takia Kurosaki, also fell by Jaishur Yukatake's blade. With the deaths of the three most powerful Quincy's, the remaining Quincy's were completely helpless before the assault of the elite Shinagamis.
Thanks for listening.